So good evening, everyone. Elvis is in the building, I see. I hope that was picked up. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our August 7th Town Council meeting. First, so ready? Good evening. Good evening. We're going to start our council meeting with our conference agenda. This evening, I've invited the Alzheimer Executive Director and Marketing Director of the Alzheimer Association. We had a lovely meeting yesterday afternoon, and it was really just to talk about a walk that they are presenting here at the Orange Reservoir at the South Mountain Recreation Complex. And I just thought it was important to get the message out to the West Orange community. It is a multi-county walk that's happening in September, but there's so much more than that. So I've invited Cheryl, Ricky Francione, and Randy Lerner, right, to come and talk about the walk and talk about everything. And I did wait. I know we're starting a little bit late, but I did want my council colleague, Michelle Castellino, to hear this because we have been working, trying to create with our Public Relations Commission a informational booklet, and I think all of this information could be part of it. So please, Cheryl, thank you. Please come up to the podium. I'm sorry. I always get so anxious. Our municipal clerk has to start the meeting. Okay.
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on October 25, 2017, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on November 2, 2017. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilman Cirillo? Present. Councilman Guarino?
Present.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Present.
Council President McCartney?
Present. Thank you. Okay. Please come up to the podium.
Sure.
Oh, right at the microphone.
So good evening, everyone, and I'm so very appreciative of you having us here tonight. The Alzheimer's Association will be in your community on September 29th.
Thank you so much.
As Susan said, at the South Mountain Recreation Complex. And it is for a walk to end Alzheimer's. But I just wanted to take a few brief minutes to explain how this relates to the West Orange community and all of the surrounding communities who house so many seniors and others in our community impacted by the disease. So right now, there are almost 7 million people in this country living with Alzheimer's, for which there is no cure, no prevention, and not even a good long-term treatment. So it's one of those issues that we have to continue to research and fight until we find a cure. So when we break this down to New Jersey, we're talking about roughly 200,000 individuals. And many of them live, they're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our parents, our grandparents, and sometimes our spouses. But it doesn't just impact the individual. In fact, it's typically harder on the caregivers because the caregivers quite frequently end up unable to work, unable to continue to support the household, and the finances start getting drained in the home. Since there is no cure and no long-term treatment that's effective, the money really starts to go very quickly, even with the savviest of investors. And I could tell you stories of households where there were 2 lawyers, 2 doctors. It doesn't matter. The disease is indiscriminate, and it can really devastate households. So what my organization does is we fund research on a worldwide basis. We are the #1 funder of research in the world. We work alongside the federal government to make sure that the National Institute for Health gets their funding replenished each year to the tune of over $400 million in our federal budget, to make sure that these research projects are continuously operating around the world. I just had the pleasure of being in Chicago at the International Research Conference, where I heard so many different scientists speak about the progress that they're making, still not finding a cure, but able to better isolate the disease, able to help diagnose earlier. We know that the federal government will save trillions of dollars if we can get an earlier diagnosis and treatment plans in place. So there's all of that in the works, educating healthcare systems, physicians on how to go about making sure their patients get proper diagnoses and also care plans, which are now starting to be covered by Medicare in certain capacities. So all of this being said, it's really important that we raise awareness. The topic has been pretty hush-hush because, let's face it, nobody wants to talk about their brilliant spouse, their incredible mother, who now can't remember the neighbor's name or where the mailbox is. It's embarrassing, and we don't want people to be embarrassed. We want them to know that there are resources out there to help them. So the Walk to End Alzheimer's helps us to raise funds not only for research, but for local care and support programs that are 100% free. They can be accessed by anyone in your community. I can help you do that. We can set up support groups at the local library, educational programs in the school systems, in senior complexes, in all of your assisted living and daycare facilities throughout your community, to not only raise awareness, but elevate education so that these people have the quality of life that they've earned and they deserve. So that being said, I won't bore you with too many more details. I just want you to understand that we all know that the baby boomer population is aging, yes? So by the year 2050, we're expecting that this country will have 100 million seniors. So that's great, right? People are living longer, but are they living well? If 1 in 3, which is what they anticipate, will end up with Alzheimer's, 1 in 3, that's a problem. And it's not just a problem for the person with Alzheimer's or the family dealing with Alzheimer's, it's a problem for the country. So the walk helps us to raise awareness and help people be a part of the change. And we are working, as I said, in partnership with the government. So because you are government officials on the local level, I think you understand the importance of the community being engaged with the government and understanding that the government is their friend and not something to be feared or misunderstood. So we work hand in hand as members of the community to elevate the issue and fund the change. So that being said, September 29th is the walk. We want to make this, although we are on technically county property, we're in West Orange's backyard. So when Susan agreed to have lunch with us, I was so grateful to have a conversation and learn just how caring she is about her community and wanting us to be able to partner with you. It goes long beyond the walk. Walk is one day. Our relationship should be year-round, where we're providing these services to the people in your community. Your statistics pretty much marry those of the country. West Orange's population, roughly 16% seniors, age 65 and older. It's the same thing across the country. So, you know, I did a quick estimate. I could be a little off, but I was totaling, all right, that's probably around like 8,000 people at this time, more or less, if we're thinking your population's about 50,000, more or less, having grown since the 2010 census, okay? So out of those people, Susan shared with me that 800 of them responded to a survey. That means that 10% of your senior population, more or less, responded to your survey. That's amazing that you have seniors that are that engaged, that they're paying attention and filling out a survey. So that tells me that they're looking for expanded services to support their quality of life. And we can help you do that from a position of healthcare and quality care for them, particularly those dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's. Let me just clarify. Every dementia is not Alzheimer's. We deal with all dementias. 80% of them are Alzheimer's. Others are what we call frontal lobe, Lewy body. Sometimes it occurs from stroke. Sometimes it's medication induced. But 80% of the time you're talking about Alzheimer's. So I don't want to drone on and on about the disease. The good news is that we funded $161 million in research this year because people walk, because people donate, and because people take a stand about making a difference. So I do believe we'll find a cure. I'm very grateful that you're hosting our walk. I'm very excited to partner with all of you, and I'd like to know what you think I can do, and my organization. I'm here with Randy Lerner, my marketing manager. My whole team is here to assist you. So as you think of things, it may not come to mind at this moment. I do hope you'll reach out to us, because we're here to help. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councilwoman Castellino.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Susan, for having her come here this evening. This is something that's been very personal for me. Both of my grandmothers had suffered from the disease, and it's very heartbreaking. At the same time, when you have a large family like I'm blessed with, you're able to have a lot of pair of hands around, because you need a lot of assistance with this disease. I just want you to touch base with the public, and we will talk, because I know Susan had briefed me earlier, and we'll be meeting in the future. But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be 70, 80 years old.
No.
How early does the disease start, if you could just educate the public a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you. So there are 250,000 people, more or less, in this country who have what's called early onset. So this is where it gets a little scary, because we fully expect, as people age, that they will have some cognitive impairment. We used to call it senility. And now we know that it's not just senility, it's an actual buildup of proteins in the brain that grow out of control. And it's progressive as we age. The likelihood of getting it is greater as we age. However, there are those who get what's called early onset. And it's, they're starting to relate it, although it's not conclusive, to the genes. There's a genetic trail to that. So there's more genetic predisposition to the early onset. So what that means is you have people in their 50s getting Alzheimer's, and the trajectory is usually much faster and steeper for them. The normal range of the disease is typically about 8 years. Some people pass away in 3 years from it. Some people live with it for 20. But with early onset, it tends to get severe much quicker. So what's amazing, and you'll hear these people talk at the walk, is that you have these brilliant people in their 50s knowing what's forthcoming and trying to plan for it. So I've had the privilege of being on Capitol Hill with some of these people who are talking to our senators and our congressmen on a national basis and saying, you need to do something. How is this right that I'm 50 years old and, don't have much time left to try to fix this problem? And what about my kids? What is this? I don't want them to live in fear, nor my grandchildren. So, there's a legacy to this. It doesn't just pass with the person and go away. So I do stand here very encouraged, because I'm going to be quite honest. We all watch the news. There's a lot of turmoil about our government in the news. I don't believe it anymore, because I stood on Capitol Hill and I saw the faces of the senators and the congressmen, and I heard their voices, and they were unified. There was no bipartisan nonsense going on. It was more or less, this is a problem. We need to address it, and we need to work across party lines to address it. And that's what I heard again and again and again. And I went home feeling good about being American and not believing some of the things that we listen to each day. So I hope that I explained that appropriately.
Thank you.
That's encouraging. Any other comments?
Just a quick question. I'm sure that there are people in our health department, and also we have several senior facilities. We
Yes.
even have a private facility for Alzheimer's patients here in town. So
Yes.
there's probably a great need for education.
Correct.
And I just wonder, I'm sure it's not you, but do you have people who
Yes.
can come and
Educators,
and
yes.
brief maybe the health department and maybe a couple of
Yes.
senior facilities, that sort of thing?
Absolutely.
That would be great, I think.
We, one of our partners, I don't want to favor one over the other, but the one coming to mind at the moment is Arden Court. We're doing a lot of work with Arden Court. We work with the Sunrise facilities, Care Ones. We pretty much work with all of them, but I do want to mention Arden Court because they've very much stepped forward to partner with us. and raise awareness, which we're grateful for. We're doing some educational programs with many of those entities. Arden Courts was the most recent. They've started what's called a memory cafe for the early onset people. Because when you have this disease and you're younger, it's really hard to talk about it with your peers unless your peers have it too, because they understand what's going on. So we offer these memory cafes where people with similar problems can discuss it. We offer family support groups. We offer educational programs. I said to Randy, as he is our marketing manager, I don't want to bombard the council with all of our flyers and trifolds. And he said, you're right, don't give them everything. That's just way too much information. But I have a plethora of programs to choose from and educators who I send out. They talk about know the 10 signs, what to do when you're first diagnosed, what to do in the latter stages of the disease, how to care for the caregiver, any different type of thing that you would want to know. There's one piece I would like you to look at in the folder really quickly, and it's a simple card. We threw the card in there, you said, Randy, right? And this is a piece that we developed. Randy and I developed it together. Because, as I said, people don't really like to talk about the disease. It's scary. So this thing, 10 Ways to Love Your Brain, we did this whole initiative, and it went over very well in Livingston, so I'm sure it could be replicated in other townships as well. We use this piece, 10 Ways to Love Your Brain. Everybody can relate to 10 quick ways to keep their brain healthy, right? So it's exercise, read, try not to smoke, take care of your heart, eat right. So you read it and you go, I'm not doing so bad. I do 5 or 6 of those things. I'm pretty good. And then you turn it over and it says, ugh. Now this is when there might be a problem. So it's very quick, to the point. It can be, put on your refrigerator, used as a bookmark, but I think in a minute it gets the point across in a non-offensive way. And then this other thing, your magnet, that's something that you can passively just hand to somebody who may not recognize that they need to take a next step. So for example, your next door neighbor you're noticing, right? And you don't really want to say anything to their spouse because you feel like maybe it's not your place. You could potentially just hand them the magnet and say, I know this lady who works for the Alzheimer's Association, and she said if you call this 800 number, if you call this 800 number, they will do a free consultation. Nobody asks for a credit card, nobody asks for your Medicare ID number, no insurance, no cost, no strings. It's a 20 or more minute consult with a professional social worker. The call goes through Chicago. I've been to the call centers. They all have their little headsets on and they're talking to people all over the country. So they listen to the family's strife and recommend what they could do next. And then my team comes in second wave and connects with them on the local level. So they get farmed back to us if they live in New Jersey, and then we determine how we can connect them to local resources. So that's basically how the system works. So rather than you trying to explain all that, if you hand the magnet and say, just call this 800 number, it works. It just puts the whole system into motion. And they can do it 24/7. So when you're caring for someone with Alzheimer's, sometimes you don't get more than 5 minutes to yourself. They can wait until their loved one is maybe taking a nap or something, and they can call the 800 number and get some information and feel empowered. So that's basically where we are, and we're so grateful that you're going to collaborate with us in your community. We'll do whatever we can to support your population.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Have all the flyers and everything
I
from them?
think whatever you have available.
Yes,
I know we're already
we have
posted.
flyers. We gave you each a packet. We have plenty of other information. I'm not sure if I brought, we also have a poster that has the 800 number on it. I'm not sure if I brought that, Randy. I might have.
Cheryl, tell us what time is the walk on Saturday?
The walk registration starts at 8:30. It's a very festive family event. It's not like somber. I didn't bring it. It's not somber and sad. It's very uplifting. And we would like people from the council to come and maybe say a word or two. We would love to have you open and cut the ribbon for us because it's your community. and you're ingratiating us. And I think it shows solidarity to your residents. So it starts, registration starts at 8:30, the walk starts at 10, and it's basically the whole thing's over by 11:30. It's very quick, but powerful. And when you see, you're gonna end up easily with 1,000 people, I can tell you that. The Essex Hudson Walk, which you are hosting, has almost 100 teams, and it's still, gosh, 2 months away. So you're gonna have a lot of people. We've already been to see the site, we're controlling the traffic, the parking, we have everything with extra police and, everything, security, everything we need, so it's very safe for your population. Crosswalks will be marked, we'll make sure that, there's nothing dangerous going on. But we would love to have you there. It's very important to us. Should I mention anything about the Love, Unity, and Diversity? Or?
Oh, well, you can, since it's an all-day event.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't want to run over my time limit, so I'll keep it very brief.
Okay.
But coincidentally, Susan was talking about the Love and Unity Diversity Festival. The Love and Unity Festival used to be held here in West Orange, hosted by Carl Brister. He is actually a community partner of mine. He's going to be singing the national anthem at the walk, and then he's going to be holding the Love, Unity, and Diversity Festival in Livingston, where I live, and I'm helping him. So it's no accident that the two events are happening on the same day. Like minds, tend to congregate. So he's a community activist in his own right. So that event will happen in Livingston, but our goal was we have one in West Orange, one in Livingston, and we merge the populations so that our community sees that we support diversity in every aspect. So although I may work for the Alzheimer's Association, so I'm an advocate for those with the disease and for the geriatric community, I'm also an advocate for diversity and inclusion. And I come from that professional background, so I want my community to host that event, and I want both communities to intermingle and everyone feels like they have a place. So I'm kind of excited that both events are going on the same day and very confident that they'll both be hugely successful. So I thank you for your partnership.
You're welcome. I think this just has been chock full. It wasn't just to promote the walk, which is important, but it just has been chock full of information. And the reason I really wanted you to come was to talk about the educational outreach and all of the resources that we did cover during our lunch meeting, and that we can connect with the health department and all the other departments in town to get the information out. Right?
We don't want anyone to feel silly asking a question. There are no silly questions. That's what we're here for, to help people feel comfortable talking about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cheryl.
Yes.
Thank you. Please. And you're going to have to control that weather too, okay? Any comments, questions?
A lot of energy, Cheryl.
Oh, I
Thank
know.
you.
She's such a great cheerleader.
It's going to be a great day. September 29th, rain or shine, people.
Okay. What is this?
That's not
Okay. All right, we're going to move right along.
Council
Can you leave any of that information for us here? Good. Okay, just extra. I know the flyer is going out in the township newsletter. Yeah, they can stay right here on the table. That would be great. Sure.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Keep in touch. Okay.
Question for administration? No,
Yes.
that's fine.
Oh, good. That'd be great.
Just Mr. Sayers, I assume they're talking a lot of traffic in that area. You'll have your usual meetings with the police department and their organization? Okay.
Always do.
Yeah, great.
Excellent. Okay. So next on our agenda is our update on redevelopment. Jack, anything to report?
Yeah, a couple things. Obviously, the ROR has more rentals in it than it did the last time I talked
good.
about it. They're up to almost 30, which is about 91%. I've talked to them about the commercial, but they're still not giving me any information on who they're looking at and who's keeping that for whatever reason. Not a secret, but he just said, I just don't want them to get out because we're dealing with different people. They're looking for a TCO temporary TCO for the battery building to start renting some units in there, probably sometime at the end of August.
Okay.
They have some units ready to go.
Models.
That's about it.
Any questions, comments?
I'm trying to find my notes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think I emailed Mr. Sayers some notes.
And Jack, we did talk about how the payments happen as they're rented. Can you talk a little bit about that?
What payments?
How payments, how pilot payments, when they kick in, how they kick in?
Yeah, John can discuss that. I'm going to leave that one to him.
Yeah, the pilot payments are calculated based on occupancy.
Right.
And we're going to be sending out, now that we have a tax rate, we're in a position now to send out the first pilot payment for the year, and then we will collect that based on an estimate, and then based on the full occupancy and rentals for the year, we will send out an adjustment in 2019.
Okay. Did you find your notes?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
When do you anticipate sending out the pilot notice? Could you also send that to the council so we could get it?
Yes.
See what is going on?
I would expect it to be out by the beginning of September.
I wanted to just follow up on our discussion at the last council meeting because it didn't hit me until I watched the video again about whether we are picking people up with the jitney from phase 1.
Not yet.
So we're not picking them up.
Not yet.
So the people that are living there, they're not taking.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, if they are, we're not stopping there. I shouldn't say that. They could be going down to Our Lady of Lourdes and getting on a jitney, but we're
Yeah.
not stopping at
Right.
the facility.
Because they could park in Mississippi right now if
Right,
they wanted
right.
to.
Okay. And then I also wanted to get the date of this closing that we've been talking about of the phase 1 and phase 2 documents and all of that happened, because the phase 2 documents set a pretty strict timeline of when they want to behave. So when we want things to happen. So I just wanted to get that date so that we could.
Phase 2 documents are completed. I believe they were completed in June. I'm not sure exact date, to be honest with you. But I do recall that once they were signed, within 90 days, they would have to put together a plan and get it upstairs before the planning board or zoning board. Now, obviously, we can default them if they don't do that. Are we going to default them if it takes them 100 days? Probably not, but it's 90 days.
As you know,
signing of the documents.
Right. No, I understand that. But what I don't have is the date when the clock started. So that's what I'm looking for.
It was sometime in June. I'll get that for you, and
Okay.
I'll call you.
Okay, you don't have to call me. Just send around the council.
Yeah, I'm just not sure exactly what the date was.
Okay.
What they
Okay.
signed off.
Thank you.
Any other comments on redevelopment? No? Okay. Start with our council liaison announcements. Anyone? Anyone?
Okay.
Go.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, my colleagues. First up, we're going to take, in partnership with the West Orange Downtown Alliance, the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board, we'll be putting together a whole marketing package and promotional package to show the residents and the merchants along the Main Street and throughout the West Orange community how the West Orange Main Street road diet will work and how it will look and what the drivers and pedestrians can expect over the next few months. We're thinking of a name for the project too. We're thinking about calling it Main Street 25 with new improved speed limits. We're waiting for the pictures and the drawings and the documents to be completed, but thank you to Megan Brill and the Downtown West Orange Alliance and my Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. We'll have a whole marketing package in place to share with the residents and have a massive meeting with the residents so they're not surprised when Main Street, the road diet, is implemented. It's something that other communities have never done, and when they did street improvements and changing of traffic flow and size of the roads, they became disasters. We don't intend that to happen with our Main Street road diet. The other thing is we're working on the future rollout of the prevention of people making left turns out of the high school parking lot. Mr. Lepore is working on that diligently with the County of Essex and with the West Orange Board of Education to put structuring in that signs don't work. You can have all the signs up there, they're not working. What we're looking at is an actual structure change to force the drivers to make the right turn on the Pleasant Valley Way and prevent future accidents. So we're really excited about that rolling out. And another great partnership with the County of Essex working with us on pedestrian and vehicular safety. Another thing, I just want to talk about something was mentioned here about Chicago, and I just came back from a great business trip to Chicago, but I learned something in Chicago about pedestrian safety. Now, you're all going to say Chicago is 9,000 times the size of the West Orange community. Well, according to their people, they don't think that way. They think of Chicago as a small town. And their whole idea of pedestrian safety is not Vision Zero, as people keep talking about New York's Vision Zero program, which doesn't work. What they do is called courtesy and education. And I have pictures that I could share with people as I was having dinner outside, you know, at an outdoor cafe at a busy intersection in downtown Chicago, and there were no stop signs. Not one single stop sign, but every time a pedestrian stepped up to the crosswalk, everybody stopped. Everybody, it's just the education and the courtesy of how they put into the drivers and the pedestrians of the city of Chicago. And I met with they have, just like we have a mayor's night here, well, on Wednesdays they have, the city hall is open for all departments. And after my work, I walked down there, beautiful building, and I got information on their pedestrian safety, which they're going to send to us. And I like to get some of their ideas, but just want to share it with my council colleagues that no matter how big a city is, they still have that small town feeling, especially of pedestrians and vehicular safety. On the last note, Council President and my colleagues, is with the Downtown West Orange Alliance. Our meeting hasn't occurred yet, so I really don't have any input for our August meeting, but we do know about a new restaurant coming into West Orange. Actually, it isn't new. It's just a revamping of Duamici down by Lady of Lords. There's new owners, and they're putting a lot of money and renovation into it, and they're looking to grow the business and work with the community, and we're really excited about that. And of course, everybody knows about the Chit Chat Diner. That's finally open, so I hope you've gotten to try that. Even though it isn't the downtown corridor, it's just another great addition to the West Orange community. And thank you, Council President, and my
Great.
colleagues.
Thank you. Anyone else ready to go?
I actually had a couple of questions that I proposed to Mr. Sayers that I just wanted to follow up. I'm not sure when the appropriate time might be, but I wanted to ask about if with your leave, it's just a couple of quick questions. Several months ago, the council approved getting appraisals for 3 potential open space acquisitions on Ridge Road and Prospect Avenue. I was just wondering how that's going.
I know we've spoken to the appraiser, but I have not gotten anything back from him yet. So he's working on them.
So you have no ETO? Maybe we could nudge him?
I can find out, but as of right now, I haven't heard.
Yeah, please, could you just find out what the timeline is?
Sure,
Okay,
definitely.
Great, thank you. And then I also had just asked to have someone knowledgeable available to brief the council on this whole Legionnaires disease issue and happening in Town Hall. And
I can tell you where we're at and what we're doing. I can't say a lot about it because obviously I can't talk about the employee, but there was an employee who contacted it. We hired a private company called Omega Environmental, which is one of the major companies in New Jersey that does this stuff. They actually wrote the state laws regarding this Legionnaires disease for New Jersey. They came in, did some testing. We had some testing done at the 2 buildings. One building was fine. The other building had, there were 5 locations, I think it was. 5 locations that were a little bit above the level that they should have been. So we brought them in and we did put filters on those 5 locations on the sinks, because it was just, they test the water in the sinks. That's been done. We're following up on all that. And based on the issue with the 5 sinks in one building, we are now going to go out and test the rest of our buildings, which is about 15 or 16 other township buildings. And that's kind of like where we're at right now.
The results were from the testing, according to our previous public announcements, was going to be in 2 weeks, and that was on July. That was an announcement on July 27th. Are those test results back in yet?
No. They tested the buildings, but the results, we haven't got the results back on the 17 buildings that we tested. We only got the results back on the 2 buildings, which was DPW and Township Hall.
Okay. So, but shouldn't they be coming in this week?
Again, they say it takes a week to 10 days to 14 days, but I can't tell you if it'll be, I don't want to tell you it's going to be here Friday and not, I don't know if it's going to be here Friday or not. It should be here soon, though.
Okay.
I just don't know when.
And I do understand that New Jersey American Water also came in. I heard from legal department that New Jersey American Water also came in and did additional testing for other things that
Yeah, well, with New Jersey American Water, because they supply the water to the township, they came in to basically talk to us about how they test their waters and everything else. So they're working with our consultant to do certain things also.
Is the employee that had to be hospitalized, is he or she back at work now?
The person is back to work. Person's back to work.
As far as you know, has anybody else contracted?
No one else that we're aware of, and we do not believe that this individual contacted it from this building.
You don't think
No.
he or she contracted it?
No.
because of the levels.
Because of levels and because
testing and that.
of what the experts are telling us. And again, we don't know that for a fact 100%, but we don't usually, just to give you an example, when we spoke originally with some of the experts, they said usually if it's in a place, one person doesn't contact it. It's usually more than one person. And we're now, almost 4 weeks in from when it happened, and no one else is contacted it. So they believe it happened somewhere outside. But we don't know that 100%.
Plus, the transmission methods are not really consistent with what the issues we have here. It really needs to be nebulized in order, because it's based on inhaling, not swallowing or even just getting wet, but actually being nebulized into the air to get deep into the lungs. And that's when it begins to.
According to the experts, it usually comes from water towers and showers, and we have showers in our fire departments. That's another reason why we're doing our other buildings, but we have no water towers in any of our buildings.
Having said that, we're not taking any chances.
No, we're doing what we
No
have.
matter, we're testing everywhere, and we'll deal with it wherever, if it's found elsewhere. We have no reason to believe it will be found elsewhere, but we would also had no reason to believe we'd find it here. So,
Thanks, and to be commended also for the very proactive approach that you're taking to put corrective measures in place.
We just want to make sure that everything is safe.
Right.
So again, you guys know more about this than I do. You said it's usually if you get some person that contracts it, if that's the source, then multiple people get it. So though they didn't get it here, because you don't think you got it here because there weren't multiple people who appear to have contracted it.
That's one philosophy. I mean, that's what they're telling us. So.
Okay. So is wherever else this employee went to contract it, are they showing multiple?
no, there's no way to tell. Nobody knows. No one knows where it's contracted. Anytime they know where it's contracted, they think they know, is when multiple people come up with it, and so then they can trace where they were, and they find by the preponderance of the evidence, they believe where it came from. Like, for instance, right after this, there was a report in New York City. At that point, I think there were 6 individuals that happened to be walking down this particular block, and those 6 people, among probably the thousands that walk down that block, contracted the disease. The other thing is, just because you may be exposed to it doesn't mean you're going to contract it, because you have to be disposed to it. You have to be in certain certain health condition or other factors.
Compromised immune system.
Yeah, there's many people that are more susceptible to it than others.
Right.
So it's very, very difficult to nail down where anybody gets it. The things they do know about it, well, the primary is like from the cooling tower that causes mist and it gets into the air and people breathe it in. Again, you'd have to be, you know, in our circumstance, the example is you'd have to have a full sink. You'd have to be hitting that water pretty hard and, you know, to work it to get into the air to where you could breathe it. That's probably didn't happen, but again, we don't know.
So in the news release, and I think you just mentioned it, there were 10 spots that were tested here in the town hall, and 5 of them showed elevated levels of the bacteria. And have those been addressed and taken care of?
We put filters on. We actually put filters on everything in town hall, not just those 5. Actually, one of the sinks was in my bathroom in my office. So we did what we had to do, and we're continuing to do what we have to do.
Okay. So I know you and I spoke on the 11th about this, and you said at that time you didn't think it was here.
Right.
But I wanted to ask if the administration was, in retrospect, satisfied with the way that you communicated this to employees and to the public. I think originally with the email that you sent out, I think you only sent it out to the employees who were in the 2 buildings. You didn't send it out to the council. And I would love if we have another type of situation like this, if you would include the council on all of these emails.
So we've done that.
And I think it was
You have now, but not the original.
I believe it was sent out to all of them.
It was sent out to all employees, and for some reason it didn't go out to you guys, and then after we spoke, I had them send it out. But everything else that we've been doing has been sent out to the employees as well as to the council.
That's interesting because several.
That was an internal memo
Yeah.
that went out to all of the employees.
I posted it on social media, and several people posted who said they were town employees who said they didn't get the email and they were looking for information. So you haven't heard that?
No, we heard from one employee who, from what I understand, we didn't have their email address, but when we sent it to not just the employees but to the department heads, we advised the department heads to make sure they advised all their employees of what was going on. And my understanding was, with all due respect, that this one person was advised.
And again, there wasn't any announcement to the public about this for some time. Was there a calculation, or not a calculation, but a decision about why not to just
No, we
post
were more
something?
concerned with the people who
It
worked
had
in the
to
building.
happen, right.
And we wanted to make sure that we were doing what we had to get done. Because we, based on what we were told, like I said, it wasn't something where they were saying, hey, you know, it's in the building and it's, you know, it's something that everybody can get, you know, it's contagious. It's got nothing to do with that.
No.
The firm actually advised us to limit the notification to the employees at that point in time, with not knowing whether or not there was anything there, because, in particular, because employees would be most concerned since they're here day in, day out. At that point in time, there was no reason to believe that it needed to be escalated to a larger level.
Right. That would just be an alarmist, and until the corrective measures were put in place and people understood how it could possibly be contracted or where you were finding this, it would have been too soon.
We took the same precautions for anyone coming in as we would for anybody else. We'd shut off the water. We provided Purell.
Announcements were made.
For clean hands and bottled water. So anybody that came in from that point forward, obviously we weren't hiding it from them, but there was no real reason, you know, at that point in time, they were advised there was no reason to escalate the notification anything further than our employees.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thanks. Anyone else? Yes, Councilwoman Castellino.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I had a few questions about that myself, and thank you for being available
Pull your
when
microphone.
we spoke to you about this a week or so ago. Just a quick question in regards to our facilities in general, because we do have so many old buildings. So is there, I know you have your 5-year strategic planning that you've been doing. Is that, are you going through each building with that process, or looking at air quality, et cetera?
Well, perhaps we're going to find that we're setting new ground for standards for public buildings that don't exist, but there certainly has not been that focus to do that. It wasn't like there was some guidance that we missed, and that this was it's just not out there. What happens is that because of the situation, when the recommendations have been that when you have someone who contracts this kind of disease, to check from that point forward. Now, moving forward in the future, will there be a different standard? I guess that remains to be seen. Depends on what else we find. If we find out that, geez, all these old buildings have it, somewhere, and we should be looking at all, maybe that's something that's going to come from it. Obviously, West Orange will be covered because we're doing all of our buildings, but that may be a standard that happens.
The bottom line is that the older the building is, the more susceptible you are. And as a matter of fact, when we originally met with them, they like I said, they said, we don't think it happened here, but we're telling you because these buildings are older, some of them are going to. So the two buildings that the individual was in, we tested those two buildings first. And we found what we found. And once we found that, we decided that we should just test the rest of the buildings. And then, as John said, New Jersey American Water has a program that we're going to deal with once everything is finished with regard to how they come in and they flush out systems once or twice a year, which would not, no matter how old the building is, will hopefully eliminate that happening again in any of the buildings.
All right, great. Thank you. I have a few announcements.
Yeah, go.
Okay, and again, thank you for having Cheryl come in, Council President. I know there'll be future conversations with the Health Department with her. It was a great topic, and those are the kind of educational pieces we're looking at to get out through our senior population. We have some events coming up in the fall, so you could contact our senior coordinators, Patty Duffier, Estrella Bianchi, at 973-325-4105. But in September, we're going to be starting Zumba on Wednesday at the Cat Civic Center from 9:30 to 10:30. Aerobics on Tuesday and Thursdays from 10 to 11. Mondays, I guess I batted out of order there. Mondays, yoga on September 5th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. There's an Oktoberfest trip up to Cruckers in New York. Music, dancing, lots of food in Pomona, New York. That is October 3rd. And that trip, you could buy the tickets through our senior service department. And let's see. Oh, and we have on September 4th, Tuesday, at Ginny Duckle Pool, our annual senior picnic from 11:30 to 2:30, $8 per person for residents. So we have a lot of activities coming up, which is great, and we're working on some more educational pieces out there for our residents. Our recreation department, I just want to give them kudos. They've been tackling movie nights up at OSPAC. One unfortunately got rained out, so they're looking to have another one in September. But at the town pool on Friday, August 31st, they will be showing Jaws at 7:15, August 31st. So that's a fun-filled night. West Orange Recreation Department, they've been very busy all summer, and we thank them for keeping all our residents entertained throughout the long, hot summer months. Thank you, Council President.
Yeah, Jaws is not entertaining.
Oh,
I think it's frightening. I'm sorry.
But there are sharks in
I think it's frightening. I'm sorry. Councilman Cirillo.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I do want to thank the public for coming out this past Saturday for Latin Night. It was a great event. The weather was beautiful. And we had some first-time visitors to the OSPAC, the Oscar Schindler Performing Arts Center, on Bowen Drive by the lake. I encourage the public to come out and check out the beautiful facility. The councilwoman spoke about some movies that are shown. We have jazz festivals. We have some beautiful activities. And just check it out. And not only OSPAC, but there's so many beauties around town, so many destinations that you can check out on these nice summer nights. I also want to make mention of there's a group of Hispanic bar owners that have gotten together to talk about quality of life issues, to talk about enforcement, to talk about, how to better provide, I guess, a service or a business to the patrons. And it was very encouraging to see everyone come together. I know it's been an issue with some matters that have come, and especially in the last few years. So through the efforts of Deputy Mayor Rodriguez and Mayor Parisi, Police Department, we're looking to see what we can do to make sure that we all understand guidelines and expectations and quality of life issues, and most importantly, the ABC laws. So that's exciting, and perhaps we can talk about membership or being more proactive in the Chamber of Commerce events or downtown West Orange. So that was about 2 weeks ago. There's going to be a follow-up meeting sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks with the police department to talk about developing a better relationship. So
Great.
that's all I have to report. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Great. That would be nice, because that's a nice segue of things going on too. The West Orange Chamber, they have so many social networking events going on, business presentations, they call them Biz 2.0. Please visit the website, www.westorange, which is spelled out, westorangechamber.com. Also the West Orange Arts Council, again, too numerous to mention the art exhibits and events planned at 551 Valley Road at the West Orange Arts Center. Please visit woarts.org for their calendar of events. What else do we have? I extended the invitation for everyone to join us at the Friends of Thomas Edison National Historic Park on Saturday, October 6th. Please save the date for the 5th annual Muckers Bowl. I mentioned that muckers were the inventors that Thomas Edison would ask them to work through the night and provide food from local vendors so that they could work through the night on pending inventions. And so we carry the tradition, calling it a Muckers Ball. We have the Wilshire Grand Caterers, the Manor, Loretti's, that provide a lot of food. Dunkin' Donuts, Supreme Bakery. Oh, the Poorhouse, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have a signature cocktail called the Electric Spark, and that's provided by the Poorhouse Pies and Pints. October 6th, save the date, it's from 5 to 9, and it's at the Thomas Edison National Historic Park. Again, the Downtown Alliance boasts that we are the only municipality in the United States that has a national park on our main street. I look forward to seeing the road diet also. What else? We had a wonderful meeting with New Jersey Transit last week, the mayor in Orange, West Orange, and the police department in Orange and West Orange, talking about the Highland Avenue station. Orange, as you may recall, did receive grant funding to refurbish the station, and we're very close because the project, our redeveloper, the Albert Group, finished the project, parking deck on the Orange side. We're having groundbreaking ceremony tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Groundbreaking ceremony for the mirror image of that on Central Avenue tomorrow. And it's just, we're very close. So a lot going on in the Valley. And that was one of the requests, maybe change the Highland Avenue station to the Valley station, which would be good to encompass the whole area. So with that, Madam Clerk. Oh, I did one more. I'm sorry. I did receive a letter from former Mayor John McKeon, from his Assembly office, and I just wanted to briefly highlight some of the things in his letter. It says, I write to you today regarding New Jersey's recently adopted 2019 fiscal year budget. Fiscally responsible, meets the important needs of our state and our communities. Talks about, under the current formula, many school districts face the extraordinary burden. This new allocation puts the state on a path toward full funding of all public schools by fiscal year 2025. West Orange Public Schools will receive a total of $12,293,000. That's an additional $3,742,000 over the current year that will begin stabilizing the tax burden. government's tax overhaul, state budget increased the state property tax deduction from $10,000 to $15,000. And the legislature also restored funding to the home state rebate program, which was previously cut. The program will once again have $300 million in funding to provide property tax relief to seniors and working class families. And finally, New Jersey Transit will have a total investment of $242 million funding to begin revising the neglect under the previous administration. So that's, hopefully we can move the Highland Avenue Station project forward. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on October 25, 2017, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on November 2, 2017. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilman Cirillo?
Present.
Councilman Guarino?
Present.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Present.
Council President McCartney?
Present.
Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The council is now in their public meeting.
Thank you. First thing on our agenda is public comment. If you have a comment or question, please come to the podium. State your name and address. Good evening. Welcome. You can push that down.
Yeah. Great. Catherine Jimenez. I'm not a resident
Oh,
of
that's
West
okay.
Orange.
Please spell your last name so we can have it correct on the...
Jimenez.
Thank you.
So I am a representative of SEIU Local 32BJ. We're the largest property service workers union in the country. We have 165,000 members, including more than 12,000 here in New Jersey. I'm here tonight to stress the importance of being a responsible building owner and preserving the high standard we've set for our janitors. The owners of Executive Drive, PAG Investments, and its partner entities have purchased the property in April of last year. They currently manage a portfolio with an estimated value of $130 million. Despite this wealth, in May 2017, PAG opted to replace ABM, the former union contractor, with Planned Building Services, who is an irresponsible contractor. Planned has slashed the cleaners' wages from $14 an hour to $9 an hour and eliminated meaningful benefits. $5 an hour pay decrease amounts to a loss of over $5,000 a year, which is crucial to our members, our hardworking members. Our members have persevered for over a year now, struggling to pay their bills, support their families, and doing without sorely needed health insurance. PAG should change its practice of hiring irresponsible contractors which pay workers poverty wages with few, if any, benefits. These hardworking families don't deserve to lose decent wages and meaningful benefits. We should not be approving a redevelopment plan for a developer who hires irresponsible contractors. Please reconsider today's vote. That's my portion. We do have a member who's going to come up and speak. She's a Spanish speaker, so I'll be translating.
Okay.
Flor Zúñiga, 40 Virginia Avenue, West Orange, New Jersey.
Flor Zúñiga is her name. She lives at 40
Virginia Avenue, West
Virginia
Orange.
Avenue here in West Orange.
Mi nombre es Flor Zúñiga. Soy miembro de la 32BJ por 35 años.
Good evening. My name is Flor Zúñiga. I'm a resident of West Orange and have been a member of SEIU 32BJ for 35 years.
Yo trabajé como limpiadora y trabajé como trabajadora de limpieza antes que tuviéramos unión, cuando los salarios eran $5.05, sin días de enfermedad o cualquier otro beneficio.
I worked here as a cleaner before the union back when wages were $5 an hour without sick days or any kind of benefits.
Participé en muchas marchas en el 2001 y la lucha que estuvimos fue por el derecho de organizar y después ganar buenos salarios y beneficios justos. Pero ahora está sucediendo otra vez lo mismo.
I participated in several marches in 2001 and fought for the right to organize and win decent wages and benefits, and now it's happening all over again.
El salario de unión me ha ayudado a criar a mi familia, mandar a mis hijos a la universidad y ahora soy dueña de mi casa en West Orange.
With the help of my union wages and increases, I've been able to raise my family, put my children through school, and I was able to become a homeowner here in West Orange.
El costo de vida está subiendo, pero gracias al salario de la unión gano lo suficiente para cuidar a mi familia. Pero mis compañeros que trabajan en el Executive Drive siguen luchando para conseguir un salario justo.
The costs of living and everyday expenses are rising every day. With union wages, I'm able to make enough to sustain my family. But what about my brothers and sisters at the Executive Drive Office Park who continue to struggle?
Le pedimos a la ciudad de West Orange que consideren la petición para que otra vez logren mis compañeros el salario que tenían antes.
We ask the city of West Orange to please support us and lead by example. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Ready to go?
You're ready to go.
My name is Robert Pringle, and I live at 10 Gaston Street, the Renner House. And I want all you people to know you're doing a good job with the buses taking me up there to the pool. And I also enjoyed the Elvis contest, the Elvis, because Elvis is great, and Bill Keyhole is doing a good job. And he better get him next year, okay? All right?
Mr. Pringle, can you turn around so we can see the back of? Can you turn around so we can see the back of your jacket?
Oh yeah, my Elvis
there
jacket.
There you
go. Elvis is the best, and he better get him next year, okay? All right. Tell Bill Keyhole to get Elvis next year, okay?
All right.
And the buses are taking me up there real good too.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, people, very
Thanks
much
for the
helping
update.
me.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you. Okay. At your service.
How you doing, Frank?
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. A little bit. Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Frank Grosso. I live at 430 Main Street, the John Dagnett house. Okay. I'm sorry I haven't been here in a while. Health issues and the weather. You had asked me, it's about the transportation again. You had asked me to try West Orange transportation again, and I did. 4 out of my 5 rides were unsatisfactory. April 11th, I called at 1 p.m., received no call back. April 12th, I called for a ride at 1 p.m. for Tuesday down the 17th. I was sitting there waiting for my ride, no show. They canceled my ride for no reason, and the explanation I got was, oh, there's 2 Franks in the system, so we canceled yours and the other Franks. They had my telephone number. They could have called me. Okay, and if I didn't call them, what would have happened? I sat there waiting. The 3rd ride went fine. I sat there a little late, no problem. 3rd ride went fine. June 12th, the Kale Foundation, we were scheduled to be picked up between 4:45 and 5 o'clock at the John Dagnett house. 5 o'clock came and went. We're sitting there. We had to reach out to Jackie Serra, so I want to thank you for getting us there. The explanation was the driver was there and nobody was waiting. I was outside at 4:30, so whatever the driver told them was not right. Then the driver comes, I'm in a wheelchair, he puts out the step ladder. What am I supposed to do? Take a riding start and jump on the step ladder with my wheelchair and get on the bus? Unacceptable. Plus he's probably getting paid overtime. Okay? And the fifth ride, same thing, no callback. And now, I got this in the mail, I don't know if everybody saw this. You're spending $110,000 for this ice bumper rink at O'Connor Park. But yet you can't get me from point A to point B satisfactorily, and I'm a senior in a wheelchair. Okay? I don't know if anybody got this, you know, the criteria about it. It's working in Providence, Rhode Island, because it's cold.
We got that.
Okay, you got that, right?
Yeah.
Lately, we've been having some mild winters here, right? So what's going to happen? You got to get a whole new staff. You got to get skate guards. You got to get concession stands, maybe for hot chocolate. That's more money. Is that all included in the 110 grand? And from what I understand, according to this, O'Connor Park is not a reasonable place to go. There's no bathrooms open, limited parking, no heated areas to warm up. I actually don't know where Lorelei Road is, but it says it could be a dangerous place to drive during the winter. When they plow, how are people going to park? I've never been there, so I don't know. But I'm going by what I read here. And I just want to know, why can't you spend money for transportation? Some people are satisfied. I'm not. And I hate to say it. You asked me to try. 4 out of the 5 rides went bad. The day after the April 10th meeting, I made the first phone call. Nobody called me back. And the guy, I don't know his name, maybe might not have been him, but he's not a nice gentleman. He tends to rush people, he don't let you finish, and he hangs up on you. I mean, I'm hoping we can get this transportation issue straightened out, because again, I love West Orange. I can't use transportation. I'm very sorry. The transportation in this town is no good for seniors. And I know it can't be done in like, you know, 1 month, but it seems like nothing's been done about it since I was at the last meeting. Okay, and that's it. Again, I think this ice bumper cart thing is going to cause a lot of problems. How about the first person that breaks an arm? You got a lawsuit. I don't know if there's insurance taking out, what do they call them, liability bonds or something like that. But the first person to get hurt, we're going to have a lawsuit. Okay, thank you everybody for listening to me. Sorry to take up your time, but I just hope you can straighten out transportation. All right, thank you.
My name is Lee Sal, and I live at 47 Carteret Street. My backyard is Degnan Park. And I'm here to present a petition to you. We, the citizens on Carteret, Hooper, and other streets close to Degnan Park in West Orange have been exposed to flocks of geese for many years. There are now approximately 35 Canadian geese making their home, fouling the water in Degnan Park and on the fields, lawns, walks, and streets surrounding the park, creating a severely unhealthy and unsafe environment. We insist that the town of West Orange act as soon as possible to rid us of these pests. In past years, efforts to control the flock by seeking out and eliminating their eggs, capturing them and giving them to agencies who provide food for indigents, or finding products that will repel them from our town were done. Now, nothing has been done for several years. Now there is a traffic problem on Hooper Avenue when the geese choose to cross that street several times a day. Cars are often backed up beyond Carteret Street. Automobile horns do not have any effect on the geese. Please act upon this problem. Also, the walkways around the park from Hooper to the area around the Cat Center and the enclosed flower park are in severe need of repair. The walkway from Hooper Avenue running close to the water is broken, extremely uneven, and unsafe to use. Months ago, this condition was shown to 3 council members. I believe it was Susan McCartney, Jerry Guarino, and Joe Krakowiak. All promised to do something about this dangerous condition. Nothing has been done. This part of the park has been neglected over 14 years, really more, but I can vouch for the 14 years. Isn't it time for the town to create a safe place for school children, parents, grandparents, toddlers, and all people who use Degnan Park? Also, is it true that West Orange received a grant for Degnan Park to repair and do things in Degnan Park? There's a rumor that there
You
was...
can finish up your comments and then they'll answer afterwards, after public comment is closed.
Well, I can't wait until then, but I present this petition to you and I beg you to please do something about this beautiful park. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, I see a hand. Yes, sir. Welcome. Name and address, please.
My name is John Koletsky. I'm from 59 Lorelei Road. Thank you for having me tonight. This is about the ice bumper car proposal for O'Connor Park. I have some additional information here. I'd just like to read it to you folks. Got a sales quote from IBC. They're the company who makes these ice bumper cars. They're in Colorado. Got a quote for 16 vehicles, which includes shipping, spare parts, an inflator, and a stacker. That's $95,095. Why I got 16 quoted is because each vehicle runs on a closed cell 55 amp 12 volt battery. So you have to charge them. So you need 8 bumper cars ready to roll, and you need 8 on the charger. So you have to alternate them. So you need quite a bit. I also got a price from Zamboni. They're the company who makes ice surfacing equipment. I didn't get a price from Olympic. That's another company, but I got Zamboni. They get $95,000 to $140,000 for a machine. $95,000 with no water system, and $140,000 with a water system. These are rough estimates, but these are actual prices. Water system puts down a smooth glass-like coat of water on the ice to make it smooth, and you need to do that. So Zamboni is basically $100,000 to $140,000. Zamboni also told me you need a heated area to keep the Zamboni machine because it runs by hydraulic system, and that can't freeze. So it has to go in a heated building. The ice has to be surfaced. It has to be smooth. It's a daily job. If it thaws, it has to be reconstructed by refreezing and resurfacing it. That's common knowledge. Also, if it snows, that has to be removed immediately from the ice. Otherwise, you're going to get hard pack. You know hard pack, the snow? That's going to be, the ice will be unusable. So you're going to have to scrape it down. You're going to have to resurface and keep scraping. The street hockey rink in O'Connor Park, it is really not an ice rink. It's a street hockey rink. There's a membrane surface over it. It's built on asphalt. So you really have to build a proper ice rink. And it has to be designed and constructed. And I mean, it's a lot of work. Now, prior to any construction of a heated storage building and an outdoor ice rink, an environmental study must be done. So many different animals frequent the park, and most particularly turtles are often in the area of the baseball court, the basketball courts, and the street hockey rink. I've lived up there all my life. I know, I've seen it. Additionally, the effect of the repeated freezing and thawing cycles of the outdoor ice rink will have on plants and animals in the adjacent stream. That has to be studied. Now the payback. The price of the ice bumper cars and Zamboni machine, if it's a minimum of $200,000, just a simple round number, and that doesn't include the storage building, construction of an ice rink, and employee costs to run and maintain the ride, that's $200,000. Ocean Ice Palace in Brick, which has these vehicles, charges $10 for a 10-minute ride, and people over 48 inches or above can ride it. Now, it would take the town At $10, if they charge that, 20,000 rides to recoup the cost of the bumper cars and the Zamboni. You got to do 20,000 rides. I mean, it's impossible. And O'Connor Park it's not equipped for that kind of business. And the ride is only going to be in service for 3 months because it's an ice, it's ice. And probably it's only going to be used on the weekends because nobody's going to go there when it's freezing cold out at night, 0 degrees. And that means it's going to be used for maybe 24 days. Going to be very hard to do any kind of payback with that, and it's weather permitting. Who knows if we have warm weather, cold weather. It would make more economic sense for the township just to provide 20,000 free $10 ride vouchers for interested residents to go to Ocean Ice Palace if they really want to ride ice bumper cars. Just give them away. Now, carnival rides in the state of New Jersey, and these are carnival rides, I checked, they require a permit from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. They're the agency that issues the permits and inspections on carnival rides. The ice bumper cars they're in this category, and to receive a permit, you have to submit an application to them, and it's very detailed. The manufacturer has to submit paperwork. It goes to their engineers, they analyze it. If they approve it, the permit is issued, and then it has to be inspected. And the ride is inspected whenever it is set up, whenever it is changed, modified, that ride has to be inspected. Detailed maintenance records have to be kept. It's all on their website. And a whole bunch of other things. And the insurance requirements for the state are $1 million per occurrence. So you have to figure out what your occurrence is probably going to be. But it's $1 million per occurrence on your liability on this thing. Most of like Ocean Ice Palace, Providence, Rhode Island, they make you sign a liability waiver if you're going to use these vehicles. Now, before any ice bumper cars are placed in O'Connor Park, a few problems have to be rectified. The field house and the restrooms are always locked, and they're surrounded by a locked, tall, ugly, sinister-looking chain link fence. Who are we trying to keep out of this building?
Your time is up.
Okay. And then, can I just go a little bit further? 2 Saturdays ago, my 4-year-old son and I have a 4-year-old, we're riding our bikes in that area of the field house, he pointed out 8 large aluminum barrels behind the lock fence, and I told him they were empty beer kegs. Now, each keg, it basically holds 165 12-ounce glasses. So 8 kegs is 1,320 glasses. Who's drinking this beer in O'Connor Park, and why is these beer kegs behind the locked fence? It's got to be somebody from the town who can put those kegs behind there. I mean, it's illegal. You're not supposed to drink beer in a park. And I noticed also when I was up there, people are urinating in the woods. There was a lot of people up there on Saturday. They're urinating in the woods because no restrooms are available. So clearly we need to get our recreation priorities in order before any ice bumper cars are even considered. I mean, I will take any questions you folks have. I could try to answer any questions, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ladies first.
Drinking water up around my house must be real good. That kid is a genius. Public announcement before I get into my timing. I spoke with Cheryl on her way out and confirmed with her the state of New Jersey will give a family $1,000 if they have a family member who has Alzheimer's, and it's for respite care for the caregivers. It's a one-time payment, but it's a good thing to know. I've mentioned it to several people who have used it, and she said she forgot or she neglected to mention it.
Thank you.
Okay, tonight I'm speaking about the recent issue of the Legionella bacteria found in the municipal building. I have several questions of my own and those that I received from others. What, if any, protocol or procedures are in place for emergencies such as recent Legionella bacteria found in this building? Why wasn't a robocall made to alert the residents? Who or what department in the township government is responsible for the maintenance of the water sources? Is there a continual and regular maintenance of the entire system? Also, who monitors and reviews the reports? Are there any federal, state, or local procedures that must be completed? Example, filters or towers being examined on a scheduled basis. When do they do the towers? I know that. If so, was the township in compliance with them before the township employee was hospitalized with Legionnaires' disease? Were the senior citizens who worked on the mailing of the property tax bills in this chamber informed of the situation when they first entered the building? Were they fully briefed on the entire situation? Who advised they be given bottled water and Purell sanitizer? And why? Is it fact that the seniors had to go to the second floor to use the toilets? Were the seniors briefed and given the opportunity to leave if they weren't comfortable with what they were told? If there are inspections, reports, complaints, or notices of violation, are they considered public records and subject to OPA requests? Can someone explain or clarify this comment that was made by the health officer? Sounds like an oxymoron, maybe I don't know how to read. But she says, quote, "It's not contagious person to person. It's not airborne. It cannot be contracted by drinking or touching water. And the way it is contracted is by inhaling contaminated water mist." Think about that. Let me ask you, are we safe being in here tonight? And lastly, when can I expect, or can we expect to see a revision of the soliciting ordinance, the correction that was supposed to be made regarding Sunset? I've been here, this is the third time. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Lauren Sweat-Vilas, Prospect Avenue. First, it's nice going a little later because you get to hear some of the other comments. With regards to the geese, I love Degnan Park too. That was a park that we frequented with our daughters. With regards to the geese, the deer, the bear, anything, the wildlife, as we lose all this land, we're putting pesticides on everything, the geese have no place to really go. So we all have these beautiful barren yards, and there's no foliage anymore for them to do their thing. So and we should probably consider some of these open space issues and taking care of parks a little better, and maybe planting more responsibly in our own yards and township to promote a better environment where the geese aren't congregating in areas that we don't want them. Not that we want them in our homes, but and then with regards to the ice bumper cars, it's such a great conversation, but I would think that that is nothing but fake news, because there's no way our township would propose in the budget $110,000 and vote for it and approve it if it wasn't going to cost that much money. Why would we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and do this without investigating first? So, you know, I'm being a little kind of joking, but yeah, it's just a little ridiculous. So anyway, I love to hear stuff about the ice bumper cars. I got to see a facility in Delaware, and the state actually runs the facility, and the ice bumper cars are there. It's in the ice rink there, and people come. It's not the private little town that runs it. I would like our town council to elaborate on what their investigation found regarding our town attorney who has a son sitting on as a voting member on the planning board. Residents were concerned that this was a conflict of interest. The son sits on the planning board and voted to recommend to this council that the Essex Green and Executive Drive properties be designated as blighted. In lieu of playing the council meetings from the Township YouTube channel, allow me to take you back to the evening of January 9th, 2018, right here in Town Hall. Ms. Morelli, who we just heard from, who's a lifelong resident in West Orange, asked of the town council, have any of the members, I'm quoting, come up with your opinions on the possible conflicts of interest involving the township attorney, Mr. Trank, who has a family member on the planning board, his son Andrew Trank, who voted in favor of the redevelopment of Essex Green. A couple weeks later, on January 23rd, 2018, Ms. McCartney, a Ventnor Township leader, demanded answers from Mr. Kaiser, the Assistant Town Council Attorney, and she said, talking about, I'm quoting, talking about, there's a legal question about whether there's a conflict in planning. Mr. Kaiser replies, and I made some props to make it really real. So Mr. Kaiser replies, I'm not going to sit here and give legal opinions.
Excuse me.
Yes.
That's not necessarily.
Oh, I'm sorry. These are just my drawings. It's not.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's just.
Okay.
Thank you.
I thought they were pretty good. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sit here and give legal. No offense, sir. Give legal opinions, even though I'm the Assistant Town Council Attorney. I will say that with respect to Mr. Trank and his son being on the planning board, when that happened, sought counsel from an independent lawyer. And that lawyer gave an opinion that it was not a conflict. A couple more weeks later, 2 more weeks or so, Councilman Krakowiak, and I won't hold up Mr. Krakowiak's puppet, I just want to follow up on some of Ms. Morelli's questions. She posed at the last town council meeting that when Mr. Trank's son was going to join the planning board, the township consulted an attorney about whether that was any sort of conflict of interest. Ms. Morelli wanted to know who the attorney was, what firm they are with, and what the fee was. Mr. Trank replied, you'd have to ask Mr. Kaiser that. I believe Mr. Kaiser was the attorney who looked at that. I know that certainly Mr. Kaiser looked at it. I do not know of any outside counsel, and certainly no outside counsel was retained without authorization from this governing body. So, as a resident, I'm curious, who was retained, what firm were they with, and how much was paid for their professional opinion about a conflict of interest? I don't believe we have an answer yet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Good evening.
Good evening. Claire Silvestri, 20 Grandview Avenue. I have a few issues I'd like to address this evening. First, I have some questions regarding Ordinance 2549-18 on first reading tonight that has to do with the Essex Green Executive Drive redevelopment area. I'm rather confused after reading the plan from Hire Gruhl and Associates that was online. It appears that what you're being asked to approve tonight only has to do with 300 Executive Drive, a very small portion of the area designated in need of redevelopment by the council majority back last January. And this proposal, to the layman's eye, appears to be merely a renovation of an existing office building, improving the exterior, remodeling the interior, adding an outdoor patio, and upgrading the mechanical systems. No changes in the building's use or footprint. And I didn't see any request for zoning changes. So if that's the case, why was this property designated as part of the redevelopment zone in the first place? Also, why is the redevelopment plan coming to us piecemeal? There are 2 other buildings at Executive Drive, plus all of Essex Green. And how much did West Orange taxpayers pay to have this firm put together a plan that the property owner could have done on his own? On another matter, I was unable to attend the July meeting when the trash and recycling pickup contract was approved, but I watched the video and read the Chronicle story. And for the life of me, I cannot understand how the majority of the council could accept a 5-year contract that raises the cost of this service over 60%. That's $1 million over what we are paying now. And that's not $1 million over the 5 years, it's $1 million each year. It wasn't long ago that we sat in this chamber and heard the top-line results of the senior citizen survey. And what was the biggest issue that residents 55 and older in town raised? Rising property taxes. That contract is certainly going to have an impact on our taxes for the next 5 years. Thank goodness this morning, Resolution 186-18 was pulled from tonight's agenda. This resolution sought approval of a 3-year renewal contract for our recycling center vendor that would have cut by more than half, that's $50,000, the amount the contractor would pay the town to take in all our organic and non-organic recyclables, provide residents with free mulch, and in addition have the privilege of operating a for-profit mulching business on town property. $50,000 less. I hope that the administration pulled the resolution because they plan to rebid this contract to get residents a better deal. And finally, I wanted to comment also on the discovery of the Legionnaires disease bacteria in the water supply at Town Hall and the lack of any safeguards instituted at the last council meeting. It's my understanding that on July 11th, when the planning board met in the council chambers, its chairman, Dr. Bagoff, announced at the beginning of the meeting that the air conditioning wouldn't run that night. And he also mentioned that a town employee had been diagnosed with Legionnaire's disease. While he didn't issue an alert to attendees, he at least notified them of the issue and directed that the air conditioning, which I have heard is a common means of spreading the disease, be shut off. However, on the subsequent Tuesday at the council meeting, I understand the air conditioning was running throughout the meeting, and no announcement was made about the possible risk to those in attendance. Did you consider that residents on chemotherapy might have been in the chambers that night? Certainly, there were a number of senior citizens sitting in the audience. How could no one in authority take reasonable precautions and alert attendees of the possible risks? At the very least, the air conditioning should have been shut off. At best, the meeting should have been moved to another venue if you weren't 100% sure that there was no risk to attendees. Thank goodness no one at the meeting seems to have contracted the disease, but government should always be focused on protecting its citizens. We should always be erring on the side of caution. Always. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Alan.
Alan Grossman, 4 North Coing Place. At last night's West Orange Board of Education meeting, was mentioned that the Redwood School is also being checked for the Legionnaire's disease. It was pointed out that particular school. I just wanted to know if you know anything more about that, why that was picked out, and if all the schools are going to be checked prior to the school opening. I just wanted a little more on that. But also, just from a PR standpoint, I realize you said that you didn't want to put out much information about it to scare people. On the other hand, you know, every friend I speak to, whether it be Livingston or Maplewood or out in Florham Park, one of the first things they say to me, oh, you're the town with the Legionnaire's disease. You know, so, you know, half kidding, but also this is kind of what we've gotten to be known for recently, unfortunately. So I think that, you know, you might want to rethink from a PR standpoint, maybe putting out a statement or something more concrete of how these things are being dealt with. I would advise that. Thanks.
Thank you. And you'll be the first to get the information so you could put it out. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and respond to some of the comments that were made. Thanks, Joe. Anyone?
Yeah, just
Councilman Sirleaf?
Sure.
Great.
I'll start.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank the members of 32BJ for being here. I see them in the back. And as you know, it's a unit that fights for a fair wage for working families, whether it be in the field of construction or the service industry. And it's my understanding that, you know, since this matter began, since the property exchanged ownership, there's been some issues with respect to wages and lowering the wages to the existing staffing. So I just want to let the membership know that we'll do what we can to assure that you know, any authority that the township may have in this process, any concessions that we may have to extend, if that's the case, or during the negotiating process, we'll do what we can to make sure that you know, a fair wage is being extended to some of our hardworking families. New Jersey is the most expensive state in the union, probably next to Massachusetts, or maybe the other way around, but we're up there. And we have to assure that if the township is extending forms of concession, we also look out after our working families. So I just want to make that commitment. Mayor Parisi has made the commitment as well. He has met with representatives of the shop, and the conversations continue during this whole review process of the redevelopment plan.
Thank you.
So it's something that we've been actively speaking about and communicating. So I just want to make that announcement, and thank you again for being here. With respect to some of the other comments, I guess some questions that we have. Frank Grasso is here. We'll continue working. I'll talk to Debbie, find out what's going on. I was just talking to her, letting her know that we have to figure out what we can do to assure that we provide consistent service. Figure out what's happening. We'll make sure that Elvis comes back. We do the best that we can. Mr. Pringle was here from the Rena House. And as it relates to the issues of a conflict of interest, I was satisfied with the explanation, but yes, I mean, if we can bring out some, if we can explain additionally, how we came about forming this opinion, I guess, from the administration forming this opinion. The premise of my perspective is really on there being two different bodies. It may be flawed, but I just think that, the planning board is one body, the council and the town is another body, but I can see how the optics, perhaps we could have looked at the optics and made a different decision before we voted. But we're talking about two different bodies. I don't know if Mr. Kaiser wants to address the issue.
Well, Council President, through you.
Thank you.
First of all, I remember the meeting in January, which is now, 8 months ago? And it had been my recollection that in my discussion that there had been an independent counsel consulted. I gather that wasn't the case. That was my recollection. My recollection was incorrect. This issue is now a part of litigation pending before court, and I assume that a judge is going to make a decision about it, because I think it's a count actually in the litigation. So I think it's inappropriate for me or anyone else here to talk about it, and the judge will tell us. I have a pretty good idea what the answer is going to be, because I'm pretty familiar with conflict of interest law in New Jersey, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. Well, thank you for
and that's the extent of my remarks, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you, Council President. A lot of good comments tonight. Thank you to everybody. I appreciate the folks from the SEIU, and I think it's really something that we, as a governing body, should keep in mind as this redevelopment process moves along, especially if there are requests for 30-year tax abatements on these projects. I was a little bit stunned to hear Mr. Grasso talking about how 4 of the 5 times he tried to get senior transportation, it didn't work out, and he had some other complaints. Mr. Sayers, any comments back? I mean,
Councilman, I told you the last time I was here, and I know Frank Grasso for a very long time, and he did call me one time, and I did handle what he needed to handle, and I'm surprised that he hasn't called me for the other 3 or 4 times that he had a problem. I'm not saying he didn't have a problem, but I'm just not so sure what's going on, to be quite honest with you, because I do not get these complaints on a daily basis. As you heard this gentleman come in and talk about how he's very happy about our transportation. It takes him back and forth to the pool, and we actually implemented that part of our transportation program based on him. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is, and I will talk with him, though, personally.
okay, because he had some specific times and dates, so...
Even when he talked about the day that he called me, his answer that he said I gave him was not correct.
I know that the township does not track these complaints, but it just seems to me that we certainly hear a lot about the complaints, and I do appreciate that you get involved and seem to address them quickly when you're called. I think I've expressed this before. I'm just concerned that the business administrator of the town is having to spend his time dealing with these transportation issues, and they don't seem to be going away. So I don't know I don't know what to recommend, except we've got to start doing something differently so that we can address these issues. I think it's not just Mr. Grosso coming.
Like I said, most of the time when a complaint comes in, and Mrs. Morelli would be able to talk to you about something that happened a week and a half ago with someone who made a complaint, and she made the complaint based on some information. I don't know where she got the information, but we do what the lady needed to get done. I had our people from transportation call her directly, and problem solved. But I don't know where people get this information from about the transportation system, because any person who has an issue, they can call the health department directly, they can call my office directly, or they can call the transportation division directly. And when that happens, we resolve those issues all the time. We've made adjustments to this program over the last year and a half, more than you can imagine. And we try to do the best we can do. So I'm not saying that people aren't saying the right things. I'm just not so sure why. It's like when people, I always tell the story about people who watch someone out in front of their house stealing a car, and then after the guy steals the car, they pick up the phone and call the police. Why don't you call the police while the person's stealing the car so we can get out there and do what we got to do? It's the same thing with transportation. If you have an issue, call us. We'll deal with it. Don't tell me this happened 5 times and you didn't mention it to anybody, but you come to an open council meeting and mention it. Why wouldn't you call us and tell us the issue so that we can resolve it? Mrs. Morelli does it for me all the time, and we resolve the issues. But if you're not calling us, we can't resolve the issue if it's an issue.
Right. Are the calls that people make to the transportation person, are they recorded at all?
No.
Every time I call a credit card company, that's the first thing they tell us, that they're being recorded for quality control.
They are not recorded. But I can tell you, we are considering recording calls in certain areas.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
We're looking at the pricing of that.
I would do.
Because I'm sure we're doing that for the 911 calls.
No, we do that in the police department. You have to do that. But I'm talking about within the municipality, within the town itself, we are considering taping phone calls for this exact reason, that people call and say, I said this or I did that, and then when we investigated, it didn't happen. So at least if we're taping the call and somebody says, I said this or I said that, we would at least have the tape and be able to go to the tape and see what the person said.
Yes.
Yep. We're getting there. We're not there yet, though.
Yeah, I think that maybe is part of the step to try to get down the number of complaints at the council meetings.
We are doing that. We are in the process of trying to figure that out.
Ms. Saul, thank you for coming to the council meeting. I'm shocked to hear that there are 35 resident Canadian geese at Degnan Park, because several years ago when I was working on that as a volunteer with some other people, there was one nest and there were less than 5 geese there. Are there really 35 geese there?
I have not been up there yet, but I'm going to go check it out after Mrs. Saul gave us her information tonight. But I can tell you our program is still the same.
Yeah. And there is a distinction between migrating Canadian geese and resident geese. The resident geese are there year-round. The migrating geese pass through, and they're there, but they do move on after a couple of weeks. And it's the same thing. Stagfield has a lot of problems with that too. Ms. Saul, on your other issue about the problems at Degnan Park, you're absolutely right. You and I spoke, but it must have been maybe 8 or 10 months ago. I'm more than happy to push this. If it still hasn't gotten resolved, we can talk in the morning, and I know Mr. Lepore is on vacation, but if I can pull out the pictures that we took, and if they're still the same or if there's more problems, we'll need to take more pictures, and we'll get it to Mr. Lepore and see what he can do about this. Your question about the grant, I'm ready to stand corrected on this, but we do have some financing to do some work at Degnan, and we're having to spend a lot of money on just sort of preparatory stuff, but there's a grant, there is work that's going to be done, if it hasn't already been done, on the softball field, I don't think there's anything else there, but
It was girls softball. Right. That was girls softball.
Mr. Coletzi, I don't know if you're still here, but you are amazing. And thank you very much for bringing these facts to us, because the more we seem to hear about this, the less attractive this whole idea is. You may not have been here a few council meetings ago, or you haven't seen the council meeting video, when I think Mr. Sayers and Mr. Gross said that we were only considering maybe 4 or 5. I think that was the number. And if there's only going to be 2 or 3 of them running at any time, that seems a whole lot less attractive. But I do appreciate all of the time you're spending on this and all of the information that you're bringing to the council. Ms. Silvestri, I hate to say this, but I agree with everything you said, and we have tried to address some of these issues, and we will be addressing them in the near future. I had asked that one of the planners that wrote the plan for 300 Executive Drive be here tonight to sort of present her plan and brief the council, but she is not here, obviously, and I'm told she'll be here at the next council meeting when the ordinance is on for second and final reading. And Mr. Grossman, thank you for the PR advice, because I'm already on record as saying I would have handled it with much more disclosure, much quicker. And I hope we, consider that in the future, because there are a lot of people very concerned about this and just didn't have access to the information. Thank you.
Councilman Sir? Again,
Just to follow up on that issue.
Please.
No, please, no.
And I'm sure the folks at home, they're worried. What's the explanation? If somebody at home is worried, I know there's probably no connection, right, between what happened, what was found at the fountain and the residents at home. Can we just reassure our
First of all, there wasn't anything found at a fountain.
Yeah. Oh, okay, whatever. Yes.
That's not true.
Can you let us know whether, how, or give an explanation to the public at home as to whether or not they should be worried or not to be concerned?
Worried about how they get the disease?
No, worried about whether or not that the disease may be found elsewhere.
I can't tell you where the person here got it, so I can't.
But let's ask it this way.
First of all, there's 2 things that I found out from these experts. One is there are people who are very susceptible to this, and there's certain things that play into that. Whether you're a diabetic, whether you smoke a lot, if you got to be over 50 years old, and all kinds of other things. And there are other people who aren't susceptible to it at all. So no matter what happens, they're never going to get it, but there are certain people that can get it. And again, what was also told to us was that it comes from mist. It doesn't come from you going in the bathroom and washing your hands. It doesn't come from you going in the bathroom, and even drinking water, to be quite honest with you, from what we've been told. It's the mist comes out, you breathe in the mist, and when you breathe in the mist, that's how you get the Legionnaires' disease. Okay. And like I said, we've had one person, knock on wood, who has tested positive, and as I said before, we still do not believe that it happened from any of these buildings.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Just use precaution, and if you
it's like anything else, you have to be precautionary for whatever it is. I mean, some people, like I said, we've been told that there are people who are susceptible to it, and there are people who are not susceptible to it. And there's a lot of different reasons why you would be susceptible to it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sanders. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Cirillo. No, it's not an interruption, but I do want to follow up too, because I previously just said that it was, you were to be commended for putting corrective measures in place. Maybe that's the timeline we want to look at about the filters, and it just seemed like that was immediate.
It was. It was immediate.
It was immediate, right.
Once we found out about it, the next day is when we went out and found an expert who told us what we should be doing, and we started that process.
Okay.
The very day that we got the test results back, the filters, we went and found a supplier for the filters. By the end of that day, the filters were all installed on everything.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify that too, because I'm not sure immediate is the right word to use. Dr. Bagoff made the announcement at the July 11th Planning Board meeting, and then there was a news release on the 28th, which is more than 2 weeks later, that said the illness took place approximately 2 weeks ago. 5 of 10 samples showed elevated levels of Legionella. Potable water supply disconnected. Remedial steps not proven that employee contacted from any town building. Other building was tested negative. And then it says installing filters that will be delivered today.
That's correct. Because it takes, once they did, we had them come in to do the evaluation immediately, but it takes a week, 10, 14 days before you get the results back. Once we got the results back, the day we got the results back, we put the filters in.
Okay, I just didn't want, like I said, I'm not sure I would have used the word immediate, but I was just saying that
But it was
this all took place over a number of weeks.
Relax, just relax.
It took place over a number of weeks.
Yeah,
and I'm not criticizing the actions that are taken. Could I just finish?
Yeah, but we cannot dictate when they get the results back. But we brought them in the day we found out about it to start the process. And the process took almost 13 days before we got the results back. And the day we got the results back is when we put the filters in and started doing everything else. So when you say it's not immediate, it was immediate. When we found out this person had this condition, we didn't sit back and say for 5 days, oh, what are we going to do? The minute we found out this person had this condition, we called the expert and brought the expert in, and they started the process. But I can't speed up the process on when they get the results back. That's what the issue was.
Thank you.
Yes, could I now finish?
Sure.
Please. Again, this is not to be critical of anything that the administration did in terms of dealing with the problem. My point was, I'm not sure the use of the word immediate conveys exactly what happened. In your mind, it sounds like you did everything immediately as soon as you heard it. I don't know enough about everything that happened to contradict that, and I accept it. I'm just saying this process took place over a number of weeks. And as you rightly point out, the tests take a while to come back, up to 2 weeks. We're still waiting for the test to come back on the other buildings.
Absolutely.
I think one of the points that Ms. Silvestri was making was that perhaps the township should have considered being more disclosure-oriented to folks about what was going on. So I think there was two things that, at least that I look at. One is, what were the steps taken to address the health? And I'm not in any way criticizing or contradicting at all. I'm just saying that using the word immediate may not be the right word to use in this
But I
case.
think
That's all.
it's been clarified. It's been clarified. Thank you.
Got it.
All right. Councilman Gruno, you were going to
I just
put us back on track.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, my colleagues. I want to thank the members of the SEIU for coming tonight. I'm sure the administration, the mayor, and all of us are always in deep concern for workers of our community, workers of the country, always giving a fair, wage to our workers. And I know the township will always be looking out for our workers and particularly our residents. And I thank you for being here. It shows your interest and your concern. Mr. Kolaski, thank you for being here tonight, sir. It shows that at least, I wish more residents were like you, sir. Instead of taking other people's information, you went out and got the information yourself and brought it to us, and we appreciate that. That's true research, and I respect you for it. I appreciate the time that you took, and your information is very helpful to us. The one thing I do want to ask the administration, based upon your presentations, about what about the kegs of beer? O'Connell.
Yeah. I have no idea what that is. I'll go check it out. But my guess is that sometimes when we rent out our facilities, people have parties there, and they may be using them, and maybe they just haven't been taken away. But I'll have somebody check that out.
Okay, and
I'd like to follow up on that. I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
What about the beer cakes? You know where
about the beer cakes? You didn't hear that?
No, I didn't realize that we allowed alcoholic beverages in our parks.
It's not in the park. If people rent out a facility, like at Degnan Park, if you rent out that facility and you're having a party, you can have alcohol in the facility.
Oh, okay.
It's not, we don't let you sit out and have it outside in the park. It's got nothing to do with that.
It's okay, Councilman, I understand. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. I wish the administration could find out what was going on. To Mr. Pringle, is he still here? No, he's not. Well, maybe we can get Elvis to come drive the bus. I think he'd like that too. So instead of Elvis being in the house, Elvis would be on the bus. Rosary, don't worry about it. Okay. I'm going to talk to the residents. I haven't heard any more complaints from Rent a House about transportation. So I will follow up at our next Rent a House board meeting, which will be coming soon. Thank you, Alan, for your opinions and your questions and call-outs, things that we need to look at. Ms. Saul, thank you. If you're still here, if she's not here, okay. I remember talking about Degnan Park in a walkway. Is she here? Thank you. I do remember us talking, and with the council, Kukovic said it was about 8 months ago, but I did take a walk with Mr. Lepore in the area, and I'll follow up too as well to see what can be done, maybe with one of our other projects.
If you have something for the baseball field,
it's two
Okay, they're two different things. Thank you, Mrs. Saul.
No dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you.
But thank you for bringing it back to our attention. And other than that, let's see. And just to talk about, any conflicts. I mean, whatever the law says, the law is, and whatever the judge decides, I'm waiting to hear from, my opinion, we base upon what a judge will say about the situation, Lauren, that you brought up. And that's, we'll wait and see what the law has to say. I have my feelings, I have my opinions, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge. I'm a concerned citizen like you are, and we'll wait and see what happens. Then we'll take it from there once we have the concrete. But, your comments are very well appreciated. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed the meeting last night.
Claire asked about the
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay. Councilwoman Castellano.
Thank you. To touch it, Mrs. Saul, although I'm not listed here, we did have a conversation a couple months ago. I did talk to both, not only Mr. Lepore, but Mr. Keogh. And it's a pretty complicated project, even though it's not just a couple sidewalks. There's a lot of that has to do there. But it is, I know, on Mr. Lepore's to-do list. And Mr. Sayers, if you could find out where that is and how long that will take to get done. But it is on both their radar. I know Mr. Keogh as well would like to see something done there. As far as that other project, that was something that was in the works and a separate issue, so one doesn't have to do with the other, but that doesn't mean this can't be addressed. It's a little more complicated with the excavating of the sidewalks and whatnot. So, but I know it was on their radar, so again, hopefully they'll get to it sooner than later. I would be supportive of phone calls being recorded. And, Mr. Grasso, I've talked to him the day after. The first two complaints actually were that the issues he had were prior to when he was here. So he had mentioned them. And I know it's very frustrating for him, and rightfully so. And I know, Mr. Sayers, you had talked to him, and even he had told me you had spoken. So I was surprised too that he did not contact you. And I know both of us will probably be on the phone with him again tomorrow because we want to help him out. And I was really glad, Mr. Pringle, that we were able to communicate with him. And that, and that eventually happened. So I'm really glad to see that happen with him and hopefully Mr. Grasso. I've been getting compliments on the transportation. I was just at a party the other night, and there was a few of our seniors there. They've been having a great experience. Not to say that the folks who don't have a great experience, we definitely need to be on top of that. But I think if phone calls are recorded, we'll be able to see where the communication differences are with folks or how our staff is speaking with residents. I know one thing, if everybody knows they're being recorded, I know customer service will improve if our staff knows they're being recorded. And hopefully, we could, we could actually work out these communication issues that we're having. Speaking of which, I know that press release did go out on the 28th for the Legionnaires. I don't want to beat that to death, but it is important. I do also know that, again, maybe to clarify, you did have a memo go out to internally to your staff immediately, because I know employees told me about it, because I was concerned when I first found out about it. I was actually down the shore on vacation, called you, and actually before I called you, I had also called some friends of mine. So I know communication did go out to folks, whether everybody read their email or not, but we always have to, reevaluate what we do and continue to improve on our communication, because it is important. I'm glad you're going to be working with the union members. That is important. And thank you folks for coming down. Mr. Koleski, impressive, really made a lot of phone calls. And just so, as far as as what happened, the mayor did put a line item in there for the budget. It was wrapped with other items, so the majority of the council did approve it. That doesn't mean we need to spend it. What that means is we could spend it on the other projects that were in that same package. So personally, I'm not crazy about the project, but I do know that Mr. Keogh and his staff has done some due diligence, not a whole, not to the extent that he may or may not, I really can't say, but it hasn't been presented to us. And so I don't want to give final judgment on a project until it's presented to us, but it hasn't been. It may not come before us because other information. So, just so you know, I appreciate all the information you found out about this, but sometimes these things are presented to us and they never make it to our desk because they might have found out additional items that you found out. I don't know. I haven't had the conversation with Mr. Keogh or the mayor about it since. But just so you folks know, it's not something that we approve that is happening. We would have to vote on it again and it would have to be presented to us again. It was just part of a process and a package for other things. I know personally we could take the money that was allocated there and put it to other items such as our firehouses and whatnot. So that is an option that we have and that we could utilize. So again, I know rumors sometimes get out there. We do have a big election coming in November in the township, so sometimes, things get, passed around. Speaking of which, let's see, in regards to the sanitation contract, Mrs. Krakowiak, you had brought that up. And if you saw the whole presentation on television, or maybe, ask your husband a few questions, you have, it was an hour-and-a-half presentation, which was great. A lot of questions were asked, but unfortunately what's going on the other side of the world in China really played into this. And, prices that, money that the contractors made on these recycling items, they're just not making anymore. And that drove up the cost, not just with us, but with other townships. I think administration went above and beyond. We worked a lot. Ms. DeNova spent a lot of time. We have this right here. This is our bid that we put out. We're a very complicated township. We have a lot going on here. We bid it out with the school board. We always talked about shared services for years, and the school board was, they got their contract lined up with our contract. It was something we tried to do for years. Everyone was all excited. We were hoping to save money, and then the world went crazy on us, unfortunately. So not only did we get beat up on this, but also other townships around us. But in our township, we're a large town, and we have 23 private associations that go through us. It has to be in the bid. They may reimburse the township, but that's part of the bid.
We have 11 apartment complexes, 1,745 units that have to be picked up. We have 7 private streets that do not include Llewellyn Park. So this is quite the document, and a lot of work that the health department took months to put together to bid out. I told folks when I sat in my former job, not a lot of contractors out there for transportation with busing, as we see sometimes we getting jitney drivers. By the way, which we did hire a part-time driver this year to help out with the transportation in the budget. But same thing with this situation with our recyclables and with our sanitation contract. Not a lot of vendors out there that could handle the multitude and the complexity of our township. So it is unfortunate. It's not something that we want to have to spend more money on, but we had a great deal for a while, and unfortunately that wasn't our situation. We could have went 3, then 5, and maybe saw that, but then you're rolling the dice because the situation could be worse. We don't have a crystal ball, but the majority of us felt a little more secured with the 5-year. Services, we talk about services being changed or rebid out with less services. If you see the very beginning of the presentation, I'm not sure, maybe we could, Ms. Nova had a slide presentation, you could see in the beginning, she really detailed it nicely, where although the increase went up overall per household, it was, I guess, $17 per household. So to change that kind of services with the recycling, sitting with the realtors, talking to folks that move to township a lot, because I am in real estate, our service is attractive, and that's why I voted for it. But thank you for bringing that up this evening. Let's see if I had anything else. In regards with the planning board and Andrew Trank, who's a fine young man sitting on it, again, I'm not going to really address that, but the one thing I am going to say is when that vote was taken, I believe it was almost unanimous, maybe 1. So even the one person's vote didn't make a difference with the vote. That motion still would have passed. I just thought that was important to say on that. And I think that's everything. Mr. Koletsky, just with all our parks, even liability waivers we have for things, even the skateboard parks, so we have liability waivers with if we did the bumper cars, but that's with a lot of the park and recreation programs. There's a lot of liability waivers that are signed by the parents. So this way the township isn't liable if there is a situation. And that is it. Thank you, Council President. I think I covered all my notes. Thank you.
Councilwoman. Thank you. I also wanted to thank the union for coming out and for Councilman Cirillo's insight. I'm glad to hear that you're hearing that. I also wanted to add that not that when agreements are presented to us, often we have the preferential hiring practices or keeping local residents employed, and we can definitely add the fair wage to those agreements. So thank you for coming and bringing that to our attention. Mrs. Saul, I do still have pictures on my phone after we did speak. I know I spoke to the engineering department, to Mr. Labor, and also Department of Public Works. I want to say I recall that there was something about encroachment issues there that needed to be addressed. So I know that our engineer is on vacation this week. I will resend the pictures to him and speak to him about that. I appreciate this part about the geese too, because this came up in other comments Mr. Svetvilas mentioned. We do have 17 bodies of water, and when Councilman Cirillo was talking about Latin Night at OSPAC, I wanted to thank the Department of Public Works because they have cleared the path around Crystal Lake, but there were numerous geese up there hissing at me as I walked around the lake. So that, I don't know if we have goose control come back or revisit. That seems to be this issue here at Degnan and also at Crystal Lake. I was surprised to see that. I'm looking at Jack, bringing that to Jack's attention. But Jack, when you were out of the room before, too, Mr. Grossman made a comment about Redwood also testing for Legionnaires, and I didn't know if you can share the New Jersey American Water and the Omega company that you're using with them, if we can follow up.
Redwood tested?
Yeah, Redwood was, it was mentioned at the Board of Ed meeting.
I'm sorry, you got...
Redwood School is also...
No, what we had done after this happened here, we called the superintendent and said, maybe you should also test your building.
Great, okay.
So I'm assuming he took the advice.
Excellent. Apparently they have.
Yeah.
That was mentioned. Okay. And there was also a resolution that was mentioned, that was pulled on reliable wood, the resolution. Can you, any reason or any comment on 186?
No, there were some issues that I think with the, some language in the contract, so we didn't have time to sit with anybody, so we're going to pull it and then sit with them and talk about it.
Thank
Be
you.
ready for the next meeting.
And Mr. Grosso, I also know from high school days, I'm surprised he didn't call you also directly when he had issues back in, Frank Grosso, when he had issues back in April. I made a note about calling Jack, so I know you're going to reach out to him.
I'll speak with him.
And other comments about, I'm going to ask the municipal clerk to pull the solicitation ordinance tomorrow so we can look at that. I feel like we did already, but
Yeah, it's based on the time of the sunset.
I think that's what the concern was.
That was the discussion.
Right. Okay, we'll look at that again, please.
Do you want the law department to look at it?
Yes.
No.
Are you recommending something to
Recommending,
them?
no, just to have it look at about the language on the sunset or dusk.
Okay.
To Claire about the Essex Green on Executive Drive, I have to say that even on the planning board, we were surprised to see only one portion and this is not a bigger plan. But as you see in the plan, they have consolidated all the offices, the remaining office space, into that one building for the improvements. Yes, in fact, they're improvements, and this is part of a much larger plan. So that's what this plan is all about. And Susan Gruel, the planner that drafted the plan, will be at our second reading in September 4th. What else? And about the skate park, I have been sharing your information with the Recreation Department because they too are doing just as much research. This is so preliminary because it is just preliminary. My son and grandchildren happen to live in Rhode Island, so before this was even brought to the council's agenda, they were sharing pictures with me of the Alex and Ani Park up there. They have a year-round program. It's not just during the winter. I had asked the mayor years ago about just having ice skating there because I know at O'Connor Park, because I know that it was set up for that. It's grown into these ice bumper cars. I don't know that it couldn't be a year-round program to possibly recoup the estimates that you presented to us. But we continue to share your information with the rec department. I continue to share information. Again, it's very preliminary while they're still doing the research. I appreciate also the alternative suggestions that you gave in your public comments. I think that's all I have.
How about Ms. Morelli's questions?
About Legion, well, I'm sorry, I don't know if you came in late about the Legionnaires, but most of the corrective actions that was discussed during our opening comments. I didn't write them all down. It was, Jack, I don't know if you want to repeat yourself, but just about the corrective actions that were in place. Mrs. Morelli had comments about the Legionnaires and seniors that were here with the tax office. Were they notified?
We spoke
and
to all of them. We told them what was going on and what they had to do. They were fine. We were actually even going to move them out of this room and go into another room, but they wanted to stay in this room.
Okay.
She asked a bunch of questions. I wrote down 13 different ones, and I didn't catch them all. But maybe Ms. Morelli could, look like she was reading off a notes. Maybe you could email them to Mr. Sayers, and maybe Mr. Sayers can get back to us at the next council meeting. I think that's probably...
I think that would be fair enough, because most of the questions have been answered previously. And
Most of them were, but she can send them to me, and I'll talk with her.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Consent agenda, approval of minutes of previous meeting, public meeting of July 17th, 2018.
Consent.
Report of township officers, none. Reading of petitions and communications and bids, none. Bills, are there any questions on the bills?
Consent.
Resolutions, are any resolutions being pulled this evening?
No. Anyone? None? None? Any questions?
Oh, I have a question.
I am hoping that Mr. Lepore did contact all of us about the resolutions on the, about the 187 and 188. Thank you. Councilwoman.
Just on D, I have a quick question.
But can we go, if there's any being pulled first? That way we can...
I see a hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to pull agenda items B, C, and D. They're all essentially the same thing. They're the contracts to provide money to recreation-related providers, and also wanted to pull agenda item J, 189-18, authorizing the purchase of 2 service vehicles, and then I had a couple of questions about agenda item J and agenda item L. So I don't know if now is the appropriate time to ask them.
I think now.
Okay.
Right, and then we can...
Let me just go to J, because...
Are we pulling
Well,
J?
you're pulling J. This is just a question. No. Yeah, right, there's 2 J's on here. Do you see?
Oh, there are 2 J's,
All
sorry.
right, but
Sorry.
That's just
Instead
a
of a K,
misprint.
okay.
189 and 190.
J and K.
Right, it's 190-18.
That's K.
Okay, this is a question,
That's K.
not to pull, just a question.
Yes, but I didn't get this information until very late, right before the meeting. But this is a resolution to award a contract for fire apparatus maintenance and repair. And it's a follow-on from 3 years ago, competitively bid, but it looks like in the resolution, if you look at the annual maintenance cost portion, it says the coverage of a pumper truck is $425 per unit for 5 units, but then when they do the multiplication, all of a sudden the 425 becomes 475. And because this cost is already going up by more than a third, I just wanted to check this to make sure which number is correct. I don't have the actual bid documents.
We will take the lower number.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Corrected.
So that's not a problem with having 2 numbers in the resolution?
To the extent that they're, in terms of the resolution itself?
Yeah, it says it's either 425 or 475, so.
No, we will be paying we will pay the lower numbers that are within the bid.
Okay. So the 475 is just a typo, or?
We'll find that out.
Okay.
Because since it's a bid, we will be taking, to the extent that they're different, that they're the same thing, we will be paying the lower numbers.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Well noted.
It's raising the costs about a third, but it was competitively bid, and it's relatively low numbers compared to some of the other big contracts that have been hitting us, so I'm not going to pull it. On 191-18, which I think is agenda item L, it's the resolution authorizing execution of recognition agreement between Township and TD Bank for property located at 22 Central Avenue. That's the income restricted 100-unit housing that Council President McCartney mentioned is going to have a groundbreaking. They're asking the council to approve this agreement, this document. I think we all just got it like a minute or 2 before the meeting started. So I just wanted to ask the administration if they reviewed this and they're okay with it because it has a couple of provisions that I just want to make sure we're in agreement on. One of them is that if there is a foreclosure, that we agree to keep the financial agreement in place, and it's a financial agreement with a payment in lieu of taxes. So it's obviously a valuable instrument. But is that something that we would do automatically? That if there was a foreclosure, would we want to renegotiate the financial agreement, or would that be something that would continue? Because I guess what they're asking is if we will keep it on until they get somebody else as a replacement mortgagee. I think that's what their question is. But again, I haven't read it in detail, but I wanted to get some advice from the administration.
I think that's typical, because otherwise a lender is not likely that's lending on the basis of an existing financial package could not depend on that for the long term. So I think that's pretty typical.
Okay, so the administration has reviewed it, and they don't have any, you guys don't have any problems with it? Okay.
I don't.
Okay. Those are the two questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Just, I do want to make a comment about this. I mentioned about the Orange, the Albert Group building the magnificent apartment building on the Orange side. They have daylighted the stream. That is our border between Orange and West Orange. Very productive meeting last week. There are 100, the point I wanted to make was that Orange is already 100% occupied, and they only just came online. I carried with me to the New Jersey Transit meeting 2 applications already for the West Orange side for people that were requesting apartments. So West Orange, like I said, will have the mirror image, and I just wanted to read that this is a 100-unit residential building, 55 affordable units, and 45 market rate units, plus 1 superintendent unit and community center, all parking and related in the area. So, thank you, John and Joe. I'm ready to move forward with that.
Are there any other resolutions being pulled this evening?
Oh, you had questions about,
I had questions.
Michelle, you had questions about B, C, and D?
Well, Councilman pulled them, so I guess I'll wait
okay.
till we could, that about the, I guess don't ask it yet. You tell me. You want me to ask it or not?
Well, you just asked your question.
If,
Yeah, I
if
think.
it was pulled.
Oh, it's pulled.
Yeah,
then we'll
right.
just
Wait till we.
Okay, sorry.
Wait till, yeah, because I have the same question.
All right, so we can vote.
Okay, is there a
consent
motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is implemented. First resolution pulled this evening was 181-18, a resolution awarding a contract for providing of recreational services and social services to residents of West Orange in the amount of $12,000 for the Township Police Athletic League.
My issues tonight have to do with language that used to be in all 3 of these contracts, 181, 182, 183. It's been taken out, and it was identical language 2 years ago. And perhaps if we could just consider these all at the same time, because there were provisions that were in all of them, and they're no longer there. And I just wanted to raise these issues with my colleagues to see whether they're in agreement with taking them out or whether we'd like to put them back in. So if you go back 2 years, you will, in all of the 3 contracts, you will see that there are 2 provisions, different numbers, but the provisions were identical. One says that the contractor agrees to submit an annual summary report to Township consistent with the form provided in the participant manual no later than December 31st, 2016. I'm taking it from the 2016 contract for the community house. And then there was another provision in all 3 that said, no payment hereunder shall issue unless the Director of the Department of Recreation of the Township has filed with the Business Administrator of the Township a written statement certifying that the payment should issue based upon his knowledge of performance hereunder or performance in progress hereunder. And I thought these were both really good ideas. One, to file the annual report so that we know how the money's being spent, and it'd be nice to know, what PAL is doing, what Community House is doing, what MTL are doing. And the other one seems to me to be a financial safeguard that requires our Director of Recreation to be paying enough attention to be able to say in writing that we should give the money because they are doing what they're doing. If they're doing what they're doing, it won't take any time, but it certainly is a safeguard. Both of these are safeguards, I thought, giving us the annual report, and then also the Director of Recreation certifying that they're actually doing what they said they would do with the money. So they've been taken out over the past 2 years out of all three of the contracts, and I've asked about this with Mr. Moon in the legal department, or in Mr. Trank's law firm. He doesn't seem to know how they got out, and I also asked Mr. Keogh, and he doesn't seem to know how they got out. So that's not a big deal. The big deal is whether we as a council want to put these two provisions back in and just keep them there.
I didn't realize they were not there because Mr. Cito has been providing an annual report. So,
I'll just
Please.
comment
Thank
on the certification. It's superfluous because everything is paid through purchase order and it has to be signed off. That same, actually stronger language is within the purchase orders, so that process is going to happen no matter what. So that really is not, like I said, it's redundant to some extent. So whether it's in there or it's not in there really doesn't matter because it's going to happen by definition.
Sounds good to me. That's a good answer. In terms of the annual report, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
Go
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Duke it out. Let's go. Duke it.
Well, just
saying you had questions, yes.
To back you up, Councilman, I happen to agree with, I think that should remain. I know.
About the annual report.
The annual report, I know that at least the Pound the Mountaintop filed them. Because I had called Mr. Keogh to ask him for them, and he usually gets the Pound the Mountaintop one, which he said it's on him. He hasn't gotten it yet this year, but he usually does, and he doesn't seem to get the Community House one. I would like for that to happen. So I have no problem leaving that in the contract.
So perhaps could I make a floor motion that says we should reinsert that language and that we should give the approval conditional on reinserting that language into the three contracts about the annual report?
We do not believe that you need it. It's your decision.
So I've got a floor motion.
When you make the motion, can you read the language into the record if you have it?
Yes, the language is, contractor agrees to submit an annual summary report to Township consistent with the form provided in the participant manual no later than December 31st of the year of the contract.
Okay.
I would second the motion.
Hold on one second, I'm sorry.
And could I just make a statement before we vote?
Should we discuss it?
Yeah, the reason why I'm favorable towards this, because in the past, time to time, you do sometimes get entities that do approach the Recreation Department asking to be, bona fide organization under their umbrella. And so it's really important that the other organizations provide that report, and it should be in a contract. So if any future organizations come forward, we're not asking them to do something that isn't being asked of the other organizations. So I feel that it's very important for that to be in there, just to present a future issue.
Okay, are you ready to vote?
Yes.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes. Yeah, you can cut and paste that and send it to Ken.
I know what it is.
Okay.
I can pull it
If you go
up.
back to 2016.
Exactly, yeah.
I can send it to you.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and that was for the three, right? 181,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
Okay.
I know we've pulled them, but
Okay, so now we have to actually vote, because that was to
Oh,
add
we
the
just
language.
voted
So
on the
now you gotta
motion
vote
to
as
change that
revised.
language.
Correct. So we'll vote all as one on the
Okay.
three. Okay.
So I'll
For
make a
now.
motion. Yes, I'm going to
make
make a
a
motion
motion that
to
we
approve Resolution 181, 182, and 183.
I second.
Revising with the amended language.
Council, and Council President, Madam Clerk, I'd like to recuse myself from the resolution for the community house because I sit on their board.
Okay, well, since we're doing it all together, then you would just recuse yourself.
Okay.
Is that fine? Okay. All right. Okay, so
So I did
council...
make a motion with the amended language.
Right, that's what we did.
Second.
And you're recusing.
I'm sorry?
You cannot make a motion. You're recusing.
No, Michelle seconded it. Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes.
Okay, so those are
Thank you.
implemented.
So you have an ordinance on second and final reading. This is an ordinance creating reclassification, salary schedule.
No, but I can't.
No,
It's
hold on,
Sorry.
Council President. Yes, you did pull 18918.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yes. Resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 service vehicles through the Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council.
The reason I pulled this is, again, I haven't had a lot of time to study this because I just got the material, but this is to purchase 2, I guess, heavy-duty trucks. One of them, or both of them, are going to be used as plows, at least in the snow. The reason I pulled this is because we're planning on purchasing 2 and continuing to use the other 2 that they nominally replace, and I'm thinking that we're going to have a really tough budget next year. We're going to have a tough budget this year because of this garbage contract is going to raise our costs just this year by $270,000. Not quite that, but something like that. And I just think if we're going to continue to use the older machines, one of them I think has roughly 50,000 miles on it, that maybe we want to consider putting off the purchase of the second vehicle until next year and get another year's use out of it, because we're going to need every penny next year, I think, to...
While the departments would love to maintain these vehicles under their umbrella, at this point in time, they certainly be kept because they're in good shape. I suspect that we'll be looking at retiring other vehicles in its place, and those will be used accordingly. So while there's not a direct one-for-one today, I suspect that we will be doing that as a matter of course, because we're going to be reviewing all vehicles going into next year's budget, and we're going to retire as many as we possibly can. So, like I said, I don't think those particular vehicles will get retired because they are still useful, but there are others that are much worse condition that are going to come off the line.
Okay, I asked that specific question to Ms. DeSantis.
I didn't think she gave. She may not have had that level of information, and I apologize. And I brought it up here tonight, but I read it just beforehand as well, and I said, yeah, okay, well, I'll clarify that tonight.
Okay, so clarifying is that we are going to use them. We are going to retire other vehicles, and we're going to need
They
that.
haven't yet been identified yet, and that's probably why she wasn't able to give you that answer. We haven't identified exactly where they're going to go, but that is part of our plan.
Okay, I mean, and I assume the ones you're retiring are because they're not useful.
they're-
Okay. So if that's the case, I appreciate the further clarification, because
Right.
I don't have anything else to say. I'm ready to vote.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve 189-18?
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes.
Now
All right.
ordinances
The
on
ordinance on second and final reading. This was a salary schedule, reclassification, employees set forth, adopting a salary guide and establishing employee status as a township employee under the guidelines of New Jersey Department of Personnel. Make a motion to introduce on second and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes. Any discussion? Public comment on reclassification? Okay, seeing none. Make a motion to approve.
Could I just, I think, if I understood correctly, again, I'm sorry if I misread this, but this basically updates our manual because the 2 municipal judges got raises this year?
This is an update to raise them $4,500 each above where they had been since I've been here, and salary ordinance has been in effect, that I know of, at least going back to 2010, maybe before that, not these particular judges, but the judge position. So yes, that's the only substantive change. There's a couple of corrections in here that were subsequent to the budget as well.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve 2547-18?
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo? Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinances on first reading, 2548-18, an ordinance supplementing Chapter 5, adding Section 8.8, and Chapter 18, adding Section 18.10 to the revised general ordinances of the Township of West Orange. Is there a motion to introduce on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes. This is the ordinance that's waiving the fees for township-sponsored, waiving the fees for mobile food trucks for township-sponsored events. Does not eliminate the inspection, right? But when
I'm sorry. I apologize, Council President.
okay. Frequently for Downtown Alliance events and also the Run for Nikhil. So that's what this is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Council.
Go ahead. You go
No.
first.
I really can't agree with this. I'm sorry. I mean, you know, it's not that much money. And the township, you know, these vendors are making money. If they were not making money, then I would say fine. Or if they were giving money, you know, I'm saying to our charities or organizations, I'd say fine. But, you know, to say no to paying for a fire permit, no for paying for the health permit, you know, we have our cost. And, you know, we always talk about that, you know, we need to raise revenues and such. And I can't see, you know, giving vendors a free ride. I'm sorry. If they were not making money.
It's not a free ride. I think they're paying to be part of it.
Yeah.
This is just waiving the fee imposed by the health department or the fire
And I
department. But they're still
apologize.
paying to be.
I used the wrong
vendor.
wording, Council President, and I apologize for that. It's not a free ride, but I just can't agree with not charging them a fee.
Okay.
You know, I don't know how my colleagues feel.
Councilwoman?
Anybody else want to go first? I agree. You know, I'd like to know the premise of this, where this came from
This
administration.
deals with town-sponsored events.
Right.
Any event that the town itself sponsors, that the mayor sponsors or the council wants to sponsor, we're going to wait. It's not for everybody. It's a town-sponsored event. There are other events that happen in town. For instance, the Downtown West Orange Alliance, they charge people to bring their trucks in.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're
But
still
they
gonna
want the fee
continue to
waived
pay.
too.
And they pay.
So we're not going
Right.
to waive that fee because they're taking in money to get to do that. So this has to do specifically with town-sponsored events.
Give me an example.
How do you define? Yeah, thank you.
The street fair.
Yeah.
The street fair, they're paying their vendor fee to
Right.
participate in the street fair, but there's an additional fee imposed on the health department and the fire department. They're still going to be inspected by the health department and fire. This is my
Don't we
understanding.
pay overtime for the inspectors to go out, or does that
That's not
incur
overtime, no.
cost to cover our cost?
Absolutely not. They do the inspections up front, basically, and then make sure that once the trucks are done, that they're inspected properly. It's not waiving the inspection at all.
No, I understand.
Inspection, and you have to pass the inspection. If you don't pass the inspection, you don't get your truck.
Are we getting less vendors? Like, or were they complaining that much? Where did this, you know, what was the, again, what?
Because it's a town-sponsored event. I can't say it any differently than that. When the township itself sponsors an event.
I get it, I understand.
Technically, we've been doing this for a long time, except that we were then now advised that the law has changed and that it has to be put into an ordinance that the township may. It's not saying you have to.
Oh, you mean we have been waiving the fees? Okay, without a written ordinance, okay.
And the issue now is that, from my understanding, is when the law changed, 2 years ago or something.
I think,
Legal said
okay. Mr. Kaiser was ready to speak. Ken, can you
I only wanted to speak to point out that this is on for first reading, but I do think that this conversation or discussion is helpful because, Mr. Moon can look at the tape of this and, address some of these issues. He's the one who prepared this, and I'm not really thoroughly familiar with the reasons behind it, but I gather
that we can find out.
Makes some sense. So, but keep raising the questions that you have because they can be addressed, and on second reading, you can then make a decision.
Okay.
Okay.
There.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I make a motion to introduce on first
We already
reading.
did that.
Okay.
Second.
We already did that.
Oh, we already did that? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, so now we have ordinance 2549-18, an ordinance adopting the redevelopment plan for Block 155, Lot 42.01, Township of West Orange. Ordinance adopts the redevelopment plan for the area designated as an area in need of redevelopment, including the Executive Drive and Essex Green properties.
Is there a motion to introduce on first reading?
Second.
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilman Cirillo?
Yes.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Yes.
Council President McCartney?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pending matters, new matters, and council discussion. None?
We're not having an ABC hearing?
Yeah, we are.
We are?
Mhm.
Okay. Mhm.
I just,
Any pending matters?
Nope.
none?
I will keep you posted on New Jersey Transit. That's a pending matter.
Okay.
That's it.
Did you want to adjourn and then go into ABC?
Can adjourn as the town council and reconvene it as an ABC board.
Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Everyone enjoy your summer.